Thank you. It is 6 o'clock and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel, or by contacting me, the municipal clerk, to receive a registration link to join the meeting being held electronically. Members of the public may also attend the meeting in person at the Coldstream Community Centre located at
You can bring it up.
Right? 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Yeah. Sure.
So through the chair to members of public attending in person this evening, we are at our maximum level for our volume system here in the building this evening. So we'll do our very best to speak clearly into the microphones, and as well the video recording of tonight's proceedings will also be made available for anyone following the meeting this evening. So like I said, we appreciate your patience as you bear with us and the technology that's available to us this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. So moving on to additions to the agenda, item 7.3, which is a consent for severance application B08-2021 for 115 Huron Ave, Kamoka, has been added to the staff reports in the agenda. So now I'll look to council. Does anyone have to add disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none then. There are no presentations of note for May 17th. Delegations related to the planning items will be heard during the public meetings. I'll look now for a motion to receive the minutes of the two meetings listed in 5.1 and 5.2. And the motion is that the minutes of May 3rd, 2023 council meetings, both A and B, be adopted as printed. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. I see Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Cates. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, there are 8 items on the consent agenda. The items listed here are received as one motion. I'll look to council members to see if anyone would like to pull anything here for further action or discussion. Yes, Councillor Heffernan, go ahead.
Through the mayor, I just wanted to say that, yeah, the county connects. That's really, I think it's apropos, and hopefully people will make use of it so that we can get funding for another time. So I appreciate that. And let me see. And the no parking on Robert Street. Thank you to staff. It's kind of dangerous there when you turn off the Village Road because people were parking right up at the corner. And with that daycare right there and some people discharging their kids right there, it potentially was dangerous. So this hopefully will get people parking further down. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Cates?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob and Andrew and staff. I just want to say thank you for the no parking along Oxbow and for listening to the situation, and thanks for doing this. I hope it really helps.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, then we do have a motion before us that consent items 6.1 through 6.8 listed on the May 17th, 2023 agenda be adopted as recommended. We have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to staff reports, we're going to start with our fire chief, Colin Toth, and he's going to review the fire services agreement for 2023-2026.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mayor. Through you to council, this report is essentially a renewal for our fire prevention service agreement with Thames Centre. This does have some changes and modifications made to it in the way that we do not have, we are not providing fire investigation services for Thames Centre moving forward. It'll just be for the prevention and inspection services. I am happy to take any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that. I'll look to council then. Are there questions on that report? Seeing none, we have a motion before us. That report FS 04/2023 regarding the Fire Prevention Services Agreement 2023-2026 be received, and that the mayor and the municipal clerk be authorized to sign the prevention service agreement between Middlesex Centre and Thames Centre. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Arts and Councillor Burrs, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving to 7.2, Hyde Park Road improvements, and this is our Director of Public Works who's going to be presenting that. Go ahead, Rob.
Good evening, through the mayor to council. Pleased to present this report. As you all know, this has been a kind of an ongoing issue with, although Hyde Park Road is a county road, the municipality receives several complaints per year regarding primarily the crosswalk that's located at by Heritage, by the medical center that runs east-west. So we've looked at whether or not there's a warrant there to put in a signalized pedestrian crossing. We know that warrant is still not met, but through many conversations with the county and working with them, we've come up with an alternate plan to implement some changes in the streetscaping along Hyde Park Road and relocation of some of the signage, including the speed limit signs, moving them further south so that the 50-kilometer per hour speed happens further south of the church prior to entering the village limits, and that the 70-kilometer per hour sign heading out of town is also moved further south. Certainly the intent with the additional landscaping is to increase what we'd call like not actual side friction, but the feel of more of tightness or of an urbanized roadway coming into town, with the intent of it slowing the speed of traffic once they realize that they're entering an urban center. So we're excited to get this implemented, and we'll monitor the results to see whether there's any impact. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council has.
Thank you for that report. Then I'll look to council. Comments, questions? I'll start with you, Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Rob and Andrew, thank you very much for this report. I mean, it's been a long time coming. The speed limit is coming into town at 70 was too much. I mean, if we start at the fire hall or the church there, maybe people will actually be doing 50 by the time they get to Heritage, and that's the hope, because that's where a lot of the issues were. But thank you very much for the work on this, and I'm sure we can do more, but at this point, this is a good start. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Brennan, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. Rob, where the fire hall is, I see you got trees planted or proposed trees planted on either side of the entrance into the fire hall. These will be kept fairly low, will they? Because I don't want them interfering with the sight line for the fire trucks coming out of there, because there is a hill to the south. You know, if they've got to get right out to the road before they can see, it creates a bit of a hazard for the fire vehicles.
Yeah, so through the mayor to deputy mayor, certainly we can review that, and we're happy to meet with the fire chief on site as well as far as locations. We set them back onto municipal property instead of within the county right of way, which will also help the sight lines, keeping them set back from the road. So, but certainly we'll coordinate that.
Is there anyone else? I don't see any hands. We have a motion before us that Public Works and Engineering Report 25/2023 regarding Hyde Park Road improvements south of Ilderson be received, and that the improvements to Hyde Park Road be approved as per Appendix A and Appendix B. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Burrs and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And item 7.3 is the consent for severance application, and Dan Fitzgerald, the county planner, will be presenting that report, please.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council and the public that are here tonight. So the purpose and effect of the staff report is to provide an updated recommendation for a previously approved or provisionally approved consent file, that being consent file B8/2021. So the application was originally heard by council on May 27th, 2021, where the applicant sought to sever a new lot for the purposes of establishing a new single detached residence, which would be located on Delaware Street Central. As a condition of that consent, the applicant is required to extend municipal services to the lands. However, as the adjacent property also received provisional approval for consent and also requires an extension of the same services, staff felt that it was prudent for both parties to enter into a cost share agreement where 50% of the cost is split between the two properties. So as a result, the applicant with staff support is requesting to add a condition to the consent to require both parties to enter into a cost share agreement. This will ensure that both parties pay their equal share of the extension's cost. The condition has been added to the recommended conditions, and if approved by council, a new notice of decision will be sent out accordingly. No other aspects of the proposed severance have changed. So given the above, staff support the inclusion of the condition, and I recommend approval of the revised proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. I'll look to council then. Questions, clarifications? Yes, Councillor Cates, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan or Rob. Just, I'm all in favor of this and I'm glad to see it moving along. I just have a little question of something that you just said. If Keith and Dorothy's side is one lot, across the road is 2 or 3 lots, but they still split 50-50, should it be split based on per lot?
Yep, through the mayor to Councillor Cates. So they're entering into a cost sharing agreement between those two parties. That's being negotiated between them, how the cost sharing is arranged.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I don't see any hands. The motion before us is that consent application B08/2021 filed by Albert Brown and Dorothy Brown in order to sever a residential lot with a frontage of approximately 15.8 meters on Delaware Street Central with an area of approximately 580 square meters and the retained parcel of a frontage of approximately 36.58 meters on Huron Ave with an area of 1,427 square meters on a property described as lot 17 to 18 in the county of Middlesex, municipality of Middlesex Center, and municipally known as 115 Huron Street be granted, and that the consent be subject to 16 conditions that are noted in the staff report, and further that the reasons for granting consent application B08/2021 include the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the proposal conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Center official plan, and the proposal complies with the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. I'm looking for a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving now to section 8, Committee of Adjustment. We need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting at 6:14 p.m. in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under section 45, of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider the minor variance applications listed on the May 17, 2023 council agenda. And just before we get into the items, members of the public that wish to receive further notification of any of the minor variance applications being considered today, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have questions on any of the applications being heard today, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak, will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order of the proceedings is the same for each of the applications, and the order is as follows. The chair, that is myself, will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. Second, we'll hear from the applicant or their agent who will speak to their application. Then the public who have registered to speak or are in attendance will be asked for their comments. Please state your name so that it can be noted in the meeting minutes. Then the clerk or the planner will note additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. And then we'll look to the committee to ask questions of the applicant and or staff, and then I will consider motions regarding the applications. So with that, we'll move to minor variance file A9 2023. And if you'd like to present the report, Dan. Thank you.
Through the chair, thanks committee. So the purpose in effect of application for minor variance A9/2023 is to seek relief from Middlesex Center's zoning bylaw as it does relate to the maximum lot coverage requirements for accessory structures that are located in the urban residential or community residential zones to facilitate the construction of a covered outdoor kitchen and seating area. The applicant is proposing to construct a structure for an outdoor kitchen and seating that has a coverage of approximately 6.23% or 67.36 square meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum coverage of 3% or 50 square meters, whichever is the lesser. The subject property is designated residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, which does permit residential uses, including accessory uses, and it is zoned residential first density zone or UR1, which permits accessory structures. The subject property is approximately 1,080 square meters, and it is located in Kilworth. It contains a single detached dwelling as well as two existing accessory structures, one in the format of a pool shed and the other in a utility shed. And it is municipally serviced. So with that said, I have reviewed the proposal against the Planning Act tests. Through the review, I am satisfied that the proposed variance does meet tests and recommend that the increase in the maximum permitted size for an accessory structure on the land be approved. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. No members of the public have requested to delegate on this report, but I'll look to the members of the public in attendance virtually and in person who may wish to comment. If you are online, please raise your hand to signify your intent. And if you're in the gallery, if you could raise your hand. Okay. All right. I'll look to the committee then. Are there questions on the report? Councillor Bruce.
Not on this one, Madam Mayor, but I'm just wondering whether it's time for us to look at increasing the percentage of use on a property. Everybody's putting everything into their backyard. This is just one example of it. It's just a comment. I don't know who would pick it up and might even consider it, but based on what I'm seeing, we might have to up the percentage use on the property and it might eliminate some of these applications.
Do you want to just make a quick comment on that?
Who's commenting?
Oh, there we go. The button wasn't working. So through the chair, thanks. Yeah, so that's a really good point. We have certainly seen a lot of applications requesting increases to the maximum size and lot coverage for accessory structures on lands. So that's something that we are looking at through the housekeeping update zoning bylaw amendment, which we heard, I believe it was at the last council meeting that we were here. So through that, if you have a peruse through, they are recommending that we increase that maximum permitted size to 10% lot coverage, which is fairly consistent with other municipalities across Middlesex County.
Councillor Cates?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to, I guess, Dan. My comment to add to that was, well, first of all, good to hear that you're looking at that. But I was going to say, before you answered, I was going to say, a lot of it also seems to be where in the calculation, it's for covered things. It's not for well, it's a structure, but it's not for like a shed or whatever. It's just a covered, a covered patio, or like in this case, a covered kitchen. So maybe that's skewing it as well. So 10%, wow. Thank you.
I see Councillor Art's hand.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. Is this house still is there a swimming pool on it?
Through the chair, yes, my understanding is that the swimming pool is still there, and the intent is for this to supplement the pool use.
Well, I would have appreciated a map with the building and the pool, because I'm trying to visualize where the building is gonna fit. And do you have, yeah. Anyways, the sketch doesn't have there's no pool on it though, right? Okay. Oh,
Anyone else?
Through the mayor to Dan, I agree, Dan, like this plan is from London Lobo or Lobo Township days. Like I'd like to see something a little more updated with the pool on there and that. And also the other point I had says kitchen. So I'm assuming there's gonna be no water hookup, sewage hookup in this building.
Through the chair, it's working. Yeah. So my understanding is that the covered structure is intended for an outdoor kitchen space. So there could be water attached and hooked up to it. That would be something that would be dealt with through the building permit application stage. In terms of the plan, I think it was likely that the homeowner didn't want to obviously pay for a survey of the lands given the cost of it. So in terms of the actual minor variance application, they've just taken the old original survey plan of when the house was originally built and then drawn the structures on. So it's likely why the pool is not shown on the plans. But rest assured, the lot is quite large. The pool is certainly within that scope and frame.
The location map is clear. There's no question about where the pool is. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion before us, and it is that the minor variance application A9 2023 filed by Mike Halliwell to permit a maximum lot coverage of 6.23% for accessory buildings for a property legally known as Lot 7 on Plan M339 in the municipality of Middlesex Centre, County of Middlesex, and municipally known as 30 Winona Road be granted. And the reasons for granting the minor variance application include the request complies with the general intent and purpose of the Middlesex Centre official plan. The request complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. And the request is minor in nature and it represents appropriate development on the subject property. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Burrs, Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2, and this is yours again, Dan.
Through the chair to members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of minor variance application A10/2023 is a minor variance to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it does relate to the minimum parking requirement in the institutional zone or for a school in this case. The applicant is proposing a minimum parking requirement of 49 stalls, whereas the bylaw requires a total of 51 parking stalls. So a reduction of 2. The subject property is located on the north side of Wellington Street, east of the intersection at Victoria and Wellington in Delaware, and is known as Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Elementary School. The applicant is requesting to add a new portable to the site, but does not comply with the minimum parking requirement. As per section 4.24, the applicant does require 3 stalls plus an additional 2 stalls per classroom on site. Therefore, they are seeking a variance to reduce the overall parking requirement for the 2 additional stalls for the placement of the portable, which is again 49 stalls versus 51. I have reviewed the proposed variance against the Planning Act tests, and through the review, I am satisfied that the proposed variance does meet the tests and recommend the reduction to the minimum parking stall requirement be approved. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. I'll look to the committee then. Are there questions or clarifications? Councillor Burrs.
Yeah, I'm not in disagreement with it, but a comment, parking's at a premium at the school. It's packed. There's literally no parking around there. The lot's full. They're parking along Wellington in the no parking zone. It's a zoo for parking. I don't know what we do in the future. I'm not against it. It's a good school. They need to expand, but do we have any thoughts on what we might do there?
Chair, sorry, I'm having mic issues. Yeah, so absolutely. The variance in this case is more so just a temporary solution for them. The school does have plans to add a fairly substantial sized parking lot to their front area where the bus loop turnaround is, like kind of inside that area. That's something that we're actually working on right now with the site plan approval side of the equation. So they are actively looking at it, and they're going to address that issue. This is the variance is just something that's temporary to get them to allow the portable to be located on site.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I don't know where they're going to put that parking lot, but I'm sure they have plans. Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, then we have a motion before us. That minor variance application A10-2023 filed by Ben Highland on behalf of the London District Catholic School Board for relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw to permit a reduced minimum parking requirement of 49 parking stalls for institutional use on the property described as 103 Wellington Street be granted. And that the reasons for granting a minor variance application include this request complies with the general intent and purpose of the Middlesex Centre official plan. It complies with the general intent and purpose of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. It is minor in nature, and the request represents an appropriate development on the subject property. If I could have a mover, please, and a second. Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Arts, all in favor? Thank you. That is carried. All right, that's the last for the Committee of Adjustments. So we need a motion now that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn at 6:28 p.m. and Council resume their regular meeting, and that the Council move into public meetings at 6:28 p.m. pursuant to the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended to consider the applications listed on tonight's Council agenda. I'm just going to quickly review the same thing that I talked about earlier. The members of the public who want to get information again about these applications should send the email to planning@middlesexcentre.ca. And if you have questions on any of the items being heard this evening, we ask that you direct them to the appropriate planner on file. The members of the public who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address Council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw, again, please respect the R-Zone policy and use respectful language and uphold values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order of proceedings is exactly the same as we just had. I'll ask the planner to do the report. Then we'll look to the applicant or the agent to speak to the application. Then public who have registered will be asked for their comments. Any members of the public who are present and wish to delegate will be called upon for additional comments. Council may ask questions of the applicant, delegates, and/or staff, and then we will consider motions. on the applications. So the first item up tonight is the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 10686 Sharon Drive. And Marion is on the screen to give us an overview of the report. Go ahead, the floor is yours, Marion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. The municipality received a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands known as 10686 Sharon Drive. This is located on the north side of Sharon Drive and just west of Carriage Road, just south of Delaware. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the lands for a temporary use zone to permit the construction of a new single detached dwelling while living in the existing dwelling on the property. The temporary use would apply for a period of up to 3 years, and upon expiration or completion of the new dwelling, that existing residents would need to be removed. The subject land is approximately 21 hectares in area and is surrounded by agricultural uses, as well as the land abuts the conservation area located to the northwest of the property. This property currently contains a single detached dwelling, as well as some accessory buildings, as well as a barn, and is serviced by private septic and well. The requested application is generally consistent with the policies of the PPS, County Official Plan, and Middlesex Center Official Plan as it relates to permitting a single-family home on an agricultural parcel. This application was circulated to area residents, agencies, and staff in accordance with the Planning Act. Staff did not receive any correspondence from any area residents at the time of writing the staff report or leading up to the public meeting. However, we did receive comments from the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority due to the presence of regulated area on the subject land and, of course, proximity to the natural heritage features and the highly vulnerable aquifer in the area. The LTVCA did review this application and concluded that they didn't have any concerns with it, just given the location of the proposed dwelling. Municipal staff commented on the application and requested that the applicant submit a deposit of $15,000 and enter into an agreement with the municipality to ensure the removal of the existing residence. As such, planning staff determined that the requested zoning bylaw amendment for a temporary zone for a period of up to 3 years is consistent with all applicable policies, including the Middlesex Center Official Plan. So staff recommend that the application be approved and that the owner enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality that will require the removal of the existing dwelling and submit a total deposit of $15,000. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And thank you for that report. Are there any members of the public in attendance virtually or in person who wish to speak to this application? I don't see any. No. Okay, so I'll look to council members there. Are there questions of the on the report or in general? I don't see any hands. We have a motion before us in that case. That zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 08-2023 for temporary use zone to permit two single detached dwellings on one property for up to 3 years to allow new residents to be constructed on the land known as 10686 Sharon Drive be approved, and that the owner be required to enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality and submit a deposit of $15,000 to ensure the removal of the existing residence. I need a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Burrs, Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. The next item up is consent application 423865 Van Eck Road, and that is your file, Dan, if you'd like to present the report.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor, members of council. So the purpose and effect of consent application B5/2023 is to sever a residence that's surplus to a farm operation as a result of a consolidation. The severed lands are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 55 meters or 180 feet on Van Eck Road and an area of approximately 0.74 acres. The retained farmland would maintain a broken frontage of approximately 741 meters on Van Eck Road and an area of approximately 58.5 acres. The subject property is located southwest on the southwest corner of Van Eck Road and McEwen Drive, just across from 15 Mile Road. It currently contains 2 single detached dwellings as well as various accessory structures and the agricultural lands used for crop production. The subject land is designated agricultural area according to the county official plan and agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan. And the lands are zoned agricultural A1 in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Upon review of the application, I am satisfied that the subject property is considered a surplus dwelling as a result of a farm consolidation. As proposed, the size of the severed lot is considered to be appropriately sized to accommodate the residential use as well as the associated services. It is noted that the former accessory structures have been removed from the site, as confirmed through survey by AGM. Upon review of the application, it is noted that a condition was missed as part of the recommendations. As such, I am requesting the inclusion of an additional condition, that being condition number 12 on the planner's report, which states that a zoning bylaw amendment that recognizes the residential use of the severed lot and prohibits any additional residential use on the retained lot of consent B5/2023 be in full force and effect prior to the issuance of a certificate of consent. Planning staff is satisfied that the criteria for the severance of the surplus farm residents as proposed have been met or can be appropriately addressed through conditions of consent. And given the above, staff are recommending that the subject application be approved, subject to the conditions outlined. So thank you, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you for that presentation. And we have Mr. Stuart Finlater, the applicant on this file, in attendance online. Good evening, Mr. Finlater. If you'd like to make your presentation, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So I just want to thank Your Worship and members of council for giving us the opportunity to speak with you briefly tonight. I have reviewed the planning report and the recommendation of Mr. Fitzgerald, and I agree with his planning analysis. And I would ask council to simply approve the application as presented. And I note that I don't have any concerns with the additional condition that Mr. Fitzgerald brought out to you this evening. So if there's any questions, I'm pleased to answer them. It is, in my opinion, a fairly straightforward surplus farm dwelling severance. And again, I would just ask council to approve the application as applied for. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll look to members of the public. Is anyone here wishing to speak to this file? I don't see any there, and there are none online. So I'm going to look to council then. Are there any questions on this application? I don't see any hands. So the motion before us is that consent application B5 2023 filed by Stuart Finlater on behalf of 14 Mile Farms Limited in order to sever a residence surplus to a farm operation as a result of consolidation on a lot with a frontage of approximately 55 meters on Van Eck Road and an area of approximately 0.74 acres. And the retained parcel having a frontage of approximately 471 meters on Van Eck Road and an area of approximately 58.5 acres from a lot legally described as part lot 24 and concession 12 in the municipality of Middlesex Center, County of Middlesex, and municipally known as 23865 Van Eck Road be granted, and that the consent B5 2023 be subject to 12 conditions noted in the staff report, and further that the reasons for granting consent application B5 2023 include proposal is consistent with the PPS, the proposal conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Center official plan, and subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. Do I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now moving to consent application for 14111 13 Mile Road, and the floor is yours, Dan.
Through the chair, thanks, Mayor and members of council. So the purpose and effect of consent application B6/2023 is to sever, again, a residence that's surplus to a farm operation that as a result of consolidation. The severed lands are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 75 meters on 13 Mile Road, as well as an area of approximately 1.06 acres. The retained farmland would maintain a broken frontage of 427.6 meters on 13 Mile Road and an area of approximately 93.9 acres. The subject property is located on the south side of 13 Mile Road, west of the intersection at Richmond and 13 Mile. It contains a existing single detached dwelling, a storage building, and agricultural lands which are in crop production. The applicant is proposing to retain the storage building on the lands that are to be retained. The lands are serviced by private services in the form of a septic system and well, and surrounding land uses are primarily agricultural in nature. The subject land is designated agricultural area according to the County of Middlesex official plan and agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and the lands are zoned agricultural A1 in the zoning bylaw. Upon review, I am satisfied that the subject property is considered a surplus dwelling as a result of a farm consolidation. As proposed, the size of the severed lot is considered to be appropriate to accommodate the residential use as well as the associated services. And as a condition of approval, the applicant will be required to rezone the lands to recognize the residential use of the severed portion and eliminate the opportunity to build a future residence on the balance of the farmland. Planning staff is satisfied that the criteria for the severance of the surplus farm residence as proposed have been met or can be appropriately addressed through conditions of consent. So given the above, I am recommending that the subject application be approved, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. And we have Mr. Ken Filson online in attendance to comment on the application.
Hello, can you hear
Good
me?
evening, Mr. Filson. If you'd like to make your comments, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening to council. Really have no comments to make. We have no concerns with the report that's been provided or any of the conditions, and simply would ask for an approval as presented. Happy to answer any questions that come up.
Thank you very much. I'll look to members of the public, either online or in attendance, who would like to make a comment. Okay, in that case, questions from council or comments? I see no hands. In that case, we have a motion before us. That consent application B6 2023 filed by 2833848 Ontario Limited in order to sever a residence surplus to a farm operation as a result of consolidation on a lot with a frontage of approximately 75 meters on 13 Mile Road and an area of approximately 1.06 acres, and the retained parcel having a frontage of approximately 427.6 meters on 13 Mile Road with an area of approximately 93.9 acres from a lot legally described as part of Lot 18, Concession 12, in the municipality of Middlesex Centre, County of Middlesex, and municipally known as 14111 13 Mile Road be granted, and that the consent B6 2023 be subject to the 12 conditions noted in the staff report, and further that the reasons for granting the consent application include the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the proposal conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Centre Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. Do I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Burrs, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And now we can look to item 9.4, which is the property at 14727 Mile Road. And the floor is yours, Dan.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose and effect of consent application, which is B10 2023, is to sever a residence that's surplus to a farm consolidation. The severed lands, which are municipally known as 14727 9 Mile Road, are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 108 meters on 9 Mile Road and an area of approximately 1.5 acres. The retained farmland, which is municipally known as 14771 9 Mile Road, would maintain a broken frontage of approximately 498 meters on 9 Mile and an area of approximately 100.7 acres. The subject property is located on the south side of 9 Mile Road on the southwest corner of the intersection at 9 Mile and Adelaide Street North. The property currently contains a dwelling at 14727 9 Mile, as well as a triplex at 14771 9 Mile Road, which is a legally non-conforming use. It also contains an agricultural storage shed and agricultural lands in crop production. The applicant advised the existing storage shed is to be severed with a single detached dwelling, and it is surrounded by agricultural lands, which are generally in crop production. The subject land is designated agricultural area, both in the County of Middlesex official plan and Middlesex Center's official plan. It is zoned agricultural A1 in the zoning bylaw. Upon review of the application, I am satisfied that the subject property is considered a surplus dwelling as a result of a farm consolidation. As for the proposed size, the applicant has indicated that the lands identified by the owner are used for residential purposes and contain all existing services. As a condition of approval, the applicant will be required to rezone the lands to recognize the residential use of the severed portion and eliminate any opportunity to build a future residence on the balance of the farmland. And planning staff are satisfied that the criteria for the severance of a surplus residence as proposed have been met or can be appropriately addressed through conditions of consent. So given the above, I am recommending that the subject application be approved subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. I believe we may have a resident in attendance to speak to this file. Yes, please, the floor is yours if you'd like to come forward. So while my mic's on, I'll just comment. I invite you to speak when you're all ready to go. I'll turn mine off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. I'm pretty sure that we would be able to meet any anything, you know, what is required to meet all the conditions.
Thank you. And I'll look now to any other members of the public who may have questions. Seeing none, I'll turn to council then. Questions, comments of the plan or anyone? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to Dan, I just have concerns about the size of the lot. Like, is there a reason why it's so big? Oh, sorry.
Through the chair to Councillor Arts. So the size of the lands are what was proposed by the applicant. And I think it's likely due to the existing structure containing 3 units in it, and then access to the units and driveways and outdoor amenity space and services.
Councillor Arts, did you want to follow up or comment? No. Go ahead, Councillor Shipley.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Dan. Dan, where's the septic system located in this farm? Do you know?
So through the chair to Councillor Shipley. Give me one moment. I do have the septic report, but I believe it's located to the south of the existing dwelling. on the, basically behind the existing dwelling on the lawn. Yep, so through the chair to Councillor Shippey, the tank is directly to the rear of the house, and then the septic field is further south from there.
Sorry, just to follow up, Madam Mayor. Whose responsibility is it for the laneway into the farm? Like, I don't know if there is a laneway there or not at this point. Would that be through the severance procedure or would that be a condition?
Yeah, so as part of our standard conditions, we include the requirement to establish a separate access for both properties. So as part of that condition clearance for the severance, they would be required to establish a separate farm access to the lands and then a separate residential access to the property, which they already maintain on the potentially severed lands.
Is there anyone else? Deputy Mayor Brennan?
My concern is at an acre and a half, we're starting to get large. And if we keep going, the next one comes in at 1.6 or 1.7, then it becomes difficult to reject it when this one's passed at 1.5. Is there an opportunity that we can shrink this lot size down to 1.1 or 1.2?
So through the chair to Deputy Mayor, what I would say is, generally speaking, we could take it back. Like, refer it back to staff, take it back and discuss that further with the applicant to see if there's an opportunity based on, the existing septic systems, the wells, accesses, those types of things, and what they're intending to achieve with the severed lands to reduce it as much as we possibly could.
Okay, so if we deferred this back, then they could take another look at it and see if they can shrink it down for us.
Through the chair, yeah, absolutely. I can work with the applicant to discuss further reducing the potential size of the severed parcel.
I would make a motion, Madam Mayor, that we defer this application back and in an effort to reduce the size of the lot that's being requested.
Do I have support? Councillor Shipley? I'll call a vote. All in favor? That is deferred back to planning then. Thank you very much for that report, Dan. And 9.5, this is 13433 Ilderton Road. The next file. If you'd like to present your report, please, Dan.
Yes, so through the chair to Mayor, members of council. So the purpose and effect of application for consent B8/2023 is to sever a lot from an existing single detached dwelling. The application seeks to sever a lot with a frontage of approximately 22.97 meters on Ilderton Road and an area of approximately 815 square meters. The retained residential lot would have a frontage of approximately 23.24 meters on Ilderton Road and an area of 842 square meters. And the effect would be to create one new residential lot with the purpose of establishing a new dwelling unit while also maintaining the existing dwelling unit on a separate parcel. The subject property as a whole is 1,672 square meters. It is a residential lot that's situated on the south side of Ilderton Road, which is east of the intersection at Hyde Park and Ilderton Road in Ilderton. The lot contains a single detached dwelling and associated accessory buildings in the format of a shed, as well as a tennis court. The dwelling is serviced by municipal piped water and municipal sanitary sewage system, and surrounding land uses are primarily residential in nature. The subject lands are designated settlement area according to the county official plan, and they are designated residential in Middlesex Center's official plan. They are also zoned in urban residential first density, or UR1 zone, in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So generally, the provincial policy statement, county official plan, as well as Middlesex Center's official plan all support residential intensification within existing settlement areas. It creates more efficient formats of development and limits the requirements to expand settlement boundaries into our prime agricultural areas. This is the preferred format of development as proposed by the applicant. And there's a number of conditions that are included on the report, which they generally would meet in terms of the requirements of Middlesex Center's official plan and consent applications. So as such, planning staff are recommending provisional approval of consent application B8/2023. Again, subject to all the conditions that are outlined in the planner's report. Thank you.
And thank you for that report. I'll look to the audience. Are the residents here to speak to this? I don't see anyone. Oh, there you are. Would you like to comment or speak to this? Okay. Okay. We'll see how we can help with that. Okay, I don't know how that will work, but I'll look to council then. Any questions on the file? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Dan, I just wanted clarification. The tennis court is no longer there. It's been already gone.
Is there anyone else? No. Okay, in that case, we do have a motion before us. It is that consent application B8/2023 filed by Kelly and Carl Bultica in order to sever a residential lot with a frontage of approximately 19.94 meters in an area of approximately 22.97 meters on Ilderton Road in an area of approximately 815.39 square meters in order to create one new residential lot for the purpose of establishing a new dwelling unit on the severed lot and the retained lot having a frontage of approximately 23.24 meters on Ilderton Road and an area approximately 842.26 square meters from a property known municipally as 13433 Ilderton Road be granted, and that the consent B8/2023 be subject to the 16 conditions that are noted in the staff report, and further that the reasons for granting the consent application include the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the proposal conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and the proposal complies with Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you and good luck with your project. Okay, the next item is 9.6, applications for official plan amendment, OPA 62, and zoning bylaw amendment under ZBA 07/2023 for the lands known as 708 and 714 Gideon Drive, filed by Strick Baldinelli Moniz on behalf of HGLW Inc. This is your report, Marion. If you'd like to present that, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. So I just shared my screen, just pulling up the conceptual site plan provided by the applicant. As you had mentioned, the municipality received an official plan amendment application and a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands known as 708 and 714 Gideon Drive, which is located on the south side of Gideon Drive, just east of Brigham Road, just north of the community of Delaware. So the purpose of the official plan amendment application is to redesignate the lands to an agriculture special policy area. And this is to permit the recreational uses on the property as well as a medical clinic, in addition to all the uses permitted within an agricultural designation. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the lands from Parks and Recreation to a new site-specific Parks and Recreation zone to permit a clinic, restaurant, professional offices, as well as a retail store, in addition to all the uses permitted within the Parks and Recreation zone, as well as a maximum height of 12.7 meters instead of the 12 meters that is currently permitted in the zoning bylaw. This property is approximately 20 acres in area and contains a residential building which is vacant, some accessory structures, a tennis and racket courts, as well as unmaintained sports fields. The applicant has also indicated that the subject lands were previously used for outdoor and indoor recreational uses that existed on the property for approximately 40 years. Existing agricultural lands are located to the east, south, and west of the subject property, as well as rural residential and conservation lands are located on the north side of Gideon Drive. So the subject lands do not contain any regulated area or natural heritage features. However, lands on the north side of Gideon Drive contain significant woodland, some regulated area, and may contain habitat for threatened and endangered species, just given the location to the Kamoka Provincial Park. So the applicant proposes a combination of indoor and outdoor recreational uses. The indoor recreational uses would be located within the proposed two-story recreation facility. This building is proposed to have a building footprint of approximately 8,000 square meters and a total floor area of approximately 14,800 square meters over the 2 floors. The recreation center would house 2 ice pads, a gym, golf simulator, and studio space for yoga, dancing, and other types of fitness activities. And this building would also integrate the restaurant, the retail space, and as well as administrative offices. The development is also proposed to have outdoor recreational spaces, including a soccer field and running track that you can see in the bottom left of the screen. This development also proposes a standalone medical clinic with a building footprint of approximately 929 square meters, and that would be located on the upper right of the property, or the northeast corner of the property. And this development is proposed to be on partial servicing, consisting of municipal water and a private septic system. So these applications were circulated to area residents and agencies in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing my staff report, I did not receive any comments from the public. However, leading up to today's meeting, staff received correspondence from area residents regarding this proposal, and I understand that these have been circulated to council. To summarize, there is significant concern with the addition of the commercial uses, especially within the agricultural area. There is a concern for the loss of agricultural land and incompatibility with the surrounding uses. There's concern about traffic generation along Gideon Drive, and the development, more development matters, including lighting, fencing, buffering between the property and budding lands. Staff reviewed this application against the relevant policies of the PPS County Official Plan and Middlesex Central Official Plan. So the PPS establishes policies to protect prime agricultural areas for the long term, but it also establishes criteria to evaluate proposals for non-agricultural uses within prime agricultural areas. Specifically, a proposal would need to demonstrate that it does not comprise a specialty crop area as defined by the province. It complies with the minimum distance separation formula. There's an identified land need within the planning horizon, and that alternative locations have been evaluated. Through our evaluation, staff determined that the proposed amendment and the proposed development generally meets the intent of these policies, since the lands are not actively used for agricultural purposes and haven't been for several decades, as well as the current zoning for the land already permits recreational uses on this property. Alternative locations have been considered, primarily in urban centers of the municipality, but staff have concluded that they don't provide sufficient size or proximity to an arterial road that would be needed to accommodate this use. Additionally, staff would not consider the proposed development on any active agricultural land or consider the removal of active agricultural land from production. And staff would still prefer to see a development such as this within an urban area where there are access to full municipal servicing. It is also noted in my staff report that this proposal and the amendment itself does not conform to policies of the current and in effect County of Middlesex Official Plan, as the policies prohibit any non-agricultural uses within proximity to the City of London. Similarly, the current Middlesex Centre Official Plan prohibits any non-agricultural uses within the agricultural areas. However, the adopted plans that were adopted last spring and last summer have been revised to remove some of these more restrictive policies and proposes policies and criteria that mirror those that are contained within the PPS regarding non-agricultural uses within the prime agricultural areas. With regard to servicing, a development of this size does require a significant amount of water resources. As such, the proponent seeks to extend a municipal water line to this lands. The details of this and the costs are still to be determined, but the applicant is working with staff through options. And a private septic system is also proposed on this land and would be sized for the recreation facility as well as the clinic. With regard to proximity to Kamoka Provincial Park and the natural heritage features on the north side of Gideon, the applicant would need to complete a development assessment report prior to the approval of any development to avoid or mitigate any impacts of the development on features or habitats of the threatened or endangered species. With regard to access, Gideon Drive is a county road and has been designed to accommodate a significant amount of traffic. As a condition of approving any development for the site, the proponent would still need to comply with the county in terms of their setback requirements as well as their road conditions. And they might need to improve the road to the satisfaction of the county, and this may include any turning lanes into the development. With regard to the zoning bylaw amendment itself, staff note that the current zone on the lands permit the recreation facility, as well as a variety of recreational uses, including accessory uses, subject to regulations of the zoning bylaw. So the request is to create a site-specific zone to add a clinic, restaurant, professional offices, and a retail store that would support the recreational uses. The applicant has suggested that the restaurant may include a sit-down cafe or concession area within the facility. Offices would be primarily for administrative staff or spaces for teams or any users to rent out before or after games. And the retail use can be associated with a clinic as well as the recreation facility for small-scale shops for medical aids or sporting goods. Based on this proposal, the uses would comprise less than 2% of the total lot area and be minimal in size compared to the primary recreational use. As such, staff recommend that the requested uses be permitted, but only as accessory uses only. And this is to prevent the establishment of solely commercial uses on the land. Staff have also recommended that a holding symbol in H2 be applied to the land to require the property owner to enter into the site plan agreement with the municipality. And this is to be done before any development has occurred on the land. So it is noted by the applicant that the recommended zoning bylaw amendment, which recommends the clinic, restaurant, office, and retail uses as accessory, conflicts with the proposal on the site. Specifically, the zoning bylaw prevents accessory buildings or structures to be located in the front yard or closer to the lot line than the main use. The conceptual site plan that you can see on your screen proposes the clinic in the front yard relative to the recreation building. Staff noted that the applicant, staff have noted to the applicant that we would prefer to see both buildings located and oriented closer to the Gideon Drive frontage, and to relocate the surface parking to the rear to minimize the appearance of the parking from the roadway. So if council is satisfied with the location of the clinic in the front yard, as shown on the concept plan, council does have the ability to recommend a modification to the zoning bylaw amendment to specifically address the accessory use provisions in the zoning bylaw. So to conclude, the development proposal has been reviewed against the policies of the PPS County Official Plan and Middlesex Center Official Plan. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the PPS. However, it does not conform to the current County Official Plan and Middlesex Center Official Plan. Again, these conflicting policies are outdated and are proposed to be removed or amended in the adopted official plans for the county and for Middlesex Center to be consistent with the PPS. As such, staff can provide a recommendation to adopt the official plan amendment 62 as amended by staff and for it to be forwarded to the County of Middlesex for consideration. Staff also recommend that the council approve zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 07-2023 as amended by staff. This opinion is provided prior to the public meeting and without the benefit of receiving all comments from agencies or members of the public. Should any new information arise, council is advised to take this information into consideration. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. We have Simona Rasno online in attendance to comment on behalf of the applicant. There. Okay, there she is.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Your Worship and council members. Can everyone hear me?
You're clear as a bell.
Thank you. My name is Simona Rasano. I'm a planner with Strick Baldwin Limones and the agent for this application. First of all, I would like to thank municipal and county staff for the review of this project, including the generally supportive planning staff report Ms. Cabral just summarized for you tonight. As Ms. Cabral mentioned, we are proposing a development that is generally permitted by the existing parks and recreation zoning and reflects historical recreational uses of the subject property. And for your information, recreational uses started in the 1970s on this property. We only need additional zoning permission to add the medical clinic, office, restaurant, and retail as accessory uses, meaning that these uses will be subordinate to or secondary to the primary recreational uses of the property. As noted in the servicing feasibility report we submitted in support of the subject applications, the development is proposed to be serviced via municipal water extensions and a new private on-site septic system. It's also important to note, as Ms. Cabral mentioned, that should the rezoning and official plan amendments applications get approved, the applicant will not be able to get building permit applications or building permits until site plan approval is granted. So that's an additional planning application. As part of that process, the applicant will need to submit detailed engineering drawings, as well as landscaping and lighting plan drawings, and have them approved by municipal, county, and all relevant approval authorities. As I previously mentioned, although staff generally support the proposal before you tonight, there is a difference of opinion regarding the location and orientation of the two buildings proposed, and that is reflected in the two zoning bylaw amendment zoning bylaws Marian, Ms. Cabral mentioned. So the alternative bylaw reflects our site plan submission and shows the parking abutting Gideon Drive, as well as a smaller medical building separate from and in front of the larger recreational center building. And this site layout requires two additional special provisions or exemptions from the existing zoning bylaw compared to the bylaw brought forward by Ms. Cabral and supported by planning staff. And my arguments in support of that alternative bylaw are as follows. So the main planning reason for having the parking area abutting Gideon Drive is that the Conservation Authority, or the UTRCA, as part of their pre-application consultation meeting, requested a minimum 40-meter setback for any buildings from the significant woodlot across the street at Komoka Provincial Park. And in response to that, all proposed buildings on our site plan are more than 40 meters away from Komoka Provincial Park. Another reason for having medical uses separated from the recreational uses includes on-site navigation and wayfinding. So for example, it is easier for people with medical needs to get directly to where they want to go. And in addition, having the medical building closer to the street also helps with navigation for patients coming into the site, or for people coming to the site in general who may have medical needs. A third reason is the need to have an efficient and functional site layout. So for example, space is going to be required on site for the proposed septic system, and it is not ideal to have this system, fronting the street, for example, or located near the street. That will be located somewhere at the rear of the property. The exact location is to be determined as part of the detailed site plan review process. So in conclusion, I hope you will support our proposal and the alternative site-specific zoning bylaw we're requesting to implement that proposal. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I will look now to members of the public to visit. Okay. Yeah. Before we move to the public.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Council, thanks for giving me a moment here. And I'm sorry to all of those you behind me, my back's to, because there's as many of you there, I think, that want to hear me talk as in front of me. What I just wanted to say was I've had a chance to look at, I believe there were 6 objections that sort of came informally to the proposal for our zoning amendment. I thought we'd be speaking to this when we get to the site plan application side of things, but I'm happy to address some things now. I just wanted to say that I read through them, and there's definitely a lot of valid things there. A lot of them, again, have to do more with site plan, which we haven't really decided on. There may be some changes to where things are and what's there. But I wanted just to be clear that we're not planning to build a strip mall, which I think is what it sounds like when you want to add restaurant and retail and medical clinic. The idea is that we're putting recreation things here that the property is already zoned to, so we can already do the rinks, we can do soccer fields, it's been there before, and that sort of thing. But within the rink is the sports medicine, right, with some physiotherapy and a couple primary care sports medicine physicians. That requires the medical addition. The restaurant is really just will be a little pub or cafe that goes along with the rinks, right, to support that and people using the facility. And then the retail side of things is not this big sports store or anything. It's really the bracing store that the physiotherapy clinic can use to sell bracing and to support the physiotherapy clinic itself. I just wanted to add that to everything that someone said.
So just to be clear, so if I'd gone to Fowler, I ripped my Achilles, I'd get my boot in the store. And okay, thank you. I'm going to look now to well, look at council to everything. The public. Yeah.
We can call Dr. Chant back as needed.
Yeah, so don't go away because I want to make sure you can respond. Yeah. So it's the public's turn now to speak. Yeah, just raise your hand and then, okay, we'll start with you, sir. Come on up, do your presentation. I'll watch the clock. What I would suggest too is that as everybody comes up, if your point has been made and somebody's already addressed it, add the new stuff because your time will be limited, and so to cover everything, that way we'll hear the new things and council will have a complete look and listen to each of the different comments that everyone wants to make. Okay, so the floor is yours and 10 minutes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Bihari. This is my wife, Raka. We're from 777 Gideon Drive. We're diagonally across the property that we're talking about. And we already sent a letter to you. You've probably seen it. We are deeply objecting this scenario and for many reasons. So anyway, I don't know if you read the letter. Have you? No? Yes? Yes? Okay, thank you. I'd like to add a few more things because we didn't have all the information. For example, I didn't know who is JLW.inc. Okay, it wasn't published anywhere. So, besides I go down with that, I have a little issue with the way it goes here. Is that our private information is disclosed to the internet? Is that correct? and or address or name, right? And it will be publicized, which is okay. We're not objecting, but we would like the same for the applicant as well. Don't just call them HLW.inc. All right? You need to say their name, their residential address, just like our residential address. And I think that would be fair, right? So anyway, that's my only thing, but I'm going on. All right, so I'm just gonna read a little quote from your Middlesex Center strategic plan vision. And it's quote, "A thriving, progressive, and welcoming community that honors our rural roots and embraces our natural spaces." Right? You wrote it, one of you, or all of you. Anyway, this proposal is none of the above, none. All right? So the way we see it, this is a real estate speculation with zone flipping. If you look at the zone, how it's done, the old zoning on the left, permitted uses, and the new one, they just moved everything over, put the things together. So it's all mixed up, saying forestry use and restaurant and store and golf course and office professional. What the hell is this? This is not what the rural community is about. Okay. So anyway, I have issue with that. Anyway, second, I'm trying to keep it short. Okay. This might not sound well for the doctor, but we are shocked to see highly educated physicians with such a blatant disregard for the environment, wildlife, and rural community. Because if you look at that map they published here, it does not include one tree, one bush. They will bulldoze all of them off there. So you call this environmental? We all talk about environment lately, all the green stuff, everything, but they never mean a word of it. And this is an example for that. We need to change that. Okay, I'm gonna go to a few specific here. Forgive me for that. Lack of infrastructure. You all know that there is no infrastructure there, right? Especially for such a big enterprise. So the MCI, I don't know, company that made a feasibility study states that the sewage generation, human feces, gonna be 32,775 liters per day from all this facility. And there is nothing right there. So they advise them to store it there. So all this human feces and whatever gonna be stored there. All right, so that's unacceptable. And according to the law, what they wrote is for private use is maximum 10,000 liters per day. This is way above that, way above. Okay, the water main. Water has to come to this humongous facility, right? A lot of water. So they are saying that there is a water main on LVH Drive and Brigham. And it has a 600 millimeter pipe, fairly big pipe. And obviously the pressure in a large pipe to bring it to this facility is not gonna be enough. So what they're proposing, to cut the pipes in half in diameter to 300 millimeter. So there'll be less volume going through, but higher pressure at the end. It's basic physics, right? Any engineers here? Sir? Okay, am I correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Bigger pipe? No, you're not gonna say anything? Okay, but I can ask question. Can I ask question? No questions. Oh, okay, all right, I'm going on. Okay, sorry about that, sorry. Anyway, the next one is the company lists 2,932 square meters of extra runoff from rain, snow, because probably, according to my estimation, about 80% of this property will be paved over and concretized. So And that runoff will be going, if nothing is done, obviously, will be going to the neighborhood, into our wells. And all of our properties that we have there have wells. We are all on wells. And actually, we are on dug wells. There is like 10-meter deep. That's it. So the runoff going to end up there. So they say, well, they should put a very large storage system so they can solve this issue. There are other things that no one talks about. This place needs to cooling, heating, electricity, internet, traffic increase, multiple. Well, there's already a car racing on Gideon Drive, so that we're used to that. I don't know what you're going to do about speed limit. Are you going to reduce it? Right now it's 80. Most cars are going twice the speed limit almost because they're using Gideon Drive as the extension to the Delaware Speedway. So all these Lamborghinis are just zipping up and down. Anyway, so another thing that no one talks about and we need to talk about is law enforcement reaction time to this place. And the reason why I'm worried about law enforcement for this place, they're going to have a 26-seat bar in the restaurant. So they'll be drinking in the restaurant, lots of alcohol, and there'll be a soccer field outside. I'm a European. We are born with a soccer ball just like Canadians born with a hockey stick, okay? So believe me, on a soccer field, drinking and playing doesn't mix. There'll be fights all the time, okay? In fact, in London, if you ask the police, you'll find out that sometimes, not that frequently, to soccer fields, the police are coming out because people are fighting with each other, okay? So law enforcement reaction time to violence is very important for this place. And we unfortunately experienced this reaction time, was it 10 years ago? We had a break-in. We had to call 911 twice for the police OPP to show up. Okay, and they show up in an hour for a double 911 call. That was 10 years ago. I hope they improved on this. Okay. So the other one is increase in noise from the traffic. The soccer field going to generate a lot of noise. There'll be whistling, screaming, lights at night. It will be a circus. And we already experienced it because the previous owner already had a little bit of soccer field there. Okay, so, and there was a lot of noise there. So, and light pollution. Sorry, I'm almost there. Okay, all right. Yeah, so one of our personal concerns are contamination of our wells. And we also have an apiary where our bees need to fly 3 miles around our property all over. And that's not going to be good for them, just paved over 22 acres of land. But we'll deal with it. We have Komoka Park behind us. Anyway, another talk about Komoka Park. We would like to get M&R involved in this. We would like to get the Upper Thames River people involved with this to see how it affects wildlife. I know on Komoka Park it says, I'm sorry? Yeah, so you cut me off? But I said, I saw that sometimes you can allow people to say a few more words. Is that true? No? Can you ask them? Do you mind if I finish my work, please? Do you mind? Can you say something? No, I mean, this is a democracy, right? Yeah, okay, we're going.
Would the next person who'd like to speak come up, please? Yeah. I have to turn mine off. I remind again, 10 minutes, please. And if you could try and perhaps highlight things that haven't been highlighted.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name is Jill McCartney. I'm the resident right next door to the proposed development. I live there with my husband and my 2 young boys. So we're at 812 Gideon Drive. I've provided written comments on the proposed amendments to the municipal clerk, and I certainly rely on those and don't intend to replicate too much of that. But I just have a few additional submissions for your consideration today, largely based on, I managed to find the staff report and get a copy of that and review that, that I didn't have the benefit of when I had prepared my written comments. Unfortunately, despite the municipality's work on this project with the corporate developer over the last 2 years, those living right next door have had about 3 weeks to digest this. So we've all scurried to prepare our written comments and get ready to come here today. I'm sure we've all read the official plans and tried to digest all of that in the staff report. So all in at the same time, while trying to process the feelings that come along with having this kind of a development in what we thought was a rural area. So my first comment is that the proposed official plan amendment application redesignates the lands to agricultural special policy area, and that's not appropriate. Based on my review of the proposed development, there's no agricultural uses being proposed, and the uses proposed are not ancillary to any sort of an agricultural operation. The proposed development has recreation uses and a recreation center with additions of urban services that belong in one of the designated settlement areas. Second, with regards to the settlement areas, I note that on page 2 of the staff report at paragraph 3, it says the staff met and worked with the applicant over the last 2+ years to determine an appropriate location for the proposed development. Previously, the applicant considered locations within urban areas with municipal servicing and on lands currently used for recreational or institutional use. We don't have any information about the extent that this was done or that there is in fact no other alternatives to this. Why is an urban area not being pursued for this development? And why are municipal staff directing this development to an agricultural area? We have no information that there are no reasonable alternative locations which avoid prime agricultural areas. There's none of that information provided. Third, with regards to the uses permitted by the zoning bylaw, they are passive recreation uses, forestry, golf course, parks, consistent with the current recreation at Kamoka Park. And the staff report suggests that the fact that there is one recreation usage across from another recreation usage, that they're compatible. But quite frankly, this is like putting Canada's Wonderland next to a campground. The recreation uses listed are not on the same mass, scale, and density of what is being proposed. Combined with the clinic, the restaurant with a rooftop patio, stores, and offices, which are consistent with an urban settlement area. I like hockey. I like skating. This is an urban settlement development. In effect, when you consider the details of this proposed development, what they combine to create, it's a destination area in the middle of an agricultural rural area without having the necessary services, water, sewer, a road network to support such a use. It's not consistent with the character of the current agricultural community. Finally, under the official plan amendment, how does this proposal contribute to the economic development of the agricultural area? In the provincial document at 1.141, it says that a healthy, integrated, and viable rural areas are supported by building upon rural character, leveraging rural amenities and assets. This does not achieve that objective. At B, it's confirmed that the proposal is primarily to facilitate a medical clinic. It should be designated what it's intended to do, which is a medical clinic. A medical clinic is not an agricultural use. A medical clinic is not a recreational use. It's also noted that planning staff note that new commercial development, like a clinic, is more appropriate to be located within a settlement area where there is a demand and need for such resources. Your own planners are saying that should be located in a settlement area, not in proximity to a settlement area, located in a settlement area. The planning staff confirm in number 3 that there is no need for additional recreational land in the municipality. In fact, there's a taxpayer-funded center just down the road, appropriately situated in Kamoka. I recognize that a recreational center and fields could be developed without the amendment. It's the intensity, the massing, the density of this use that's a concern, plus the restaurant, office, and commercial uses being proposed, which are more appropriate for a settlement area. I don't know if anyone's taken the time to look at the interior plan for this building. It's huge. You could have your weddings there, it looks like. You can rent it for a conference. It's huge. It's got a giant rooftop patio. The proposed development is not agricultural in any way. It's not limited to recreation. It's an indirect attempt to commercialize a rural agricultural area in a situation that does not justify the proposed exceptions to the rules of the stated separation of town and country in your very own plan. There's no recreational need, no economic benefit to the agricultural area, and no information that the settlement area, that options in settlement areas are not available. It has a significant impact on the character of the agricultural community, as well as the reasonable use and enjoyment of the residents of the adjacent properties. So in conclusion, this is not an appropriate development on the subject property. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Then is there another speaker that I'd like to come up now? Come on up and push the button when you're ready to speak. I'll turn mine off now.
Excuse me, my name is Ann Thompson. My husband and I own a 34-acre farm just south of this proposed development. We share a property line. We've lived there for almost 38 years. I have probably greater concerns for the neighbors on Gideon than I do for myself. It will greatly impact our property. It's my understanding that we could not run, if this is passed, we would not be able to have livestock within 750 meters of the property line. I could be wrong on that. It's hearsay. The lighting, we live in a rural area. We live in a beautiful rural area where a number of us have invested a lot of money. The lighting that will be required for 518 parking spots will be huge. The poor people on Gideon Drive are going to have to double insulate their windows. It's also going to affect us. We will look on back and see floodlights. We will never mind the sunset. It is going to depreciate all of the properties within reasonable proximity greatly. People who have paid taxes for 30 to 40 years in their wonderful rural area are going to now see the properties greatly depreciated. I don't think any one of us wants to experience that. And most of my points have been shared with the effects of huge septic system. We're all on well water. Not sure which way that, for the shallow wells, which way that underground creek flows, but it's going to hit one of us for sure. The traffic, again, going back to Gideon, that road cannot handle this traffic that's going to come. There's already been a serious accident. If you travel the road, you know how quickly they travel. They're not prepared for people to slow down, for hockey teams to slow down and turn into that arena. Medical center, yes, it's not going to have X number of people coming at a time. They're not prepared to allow people out, and they're not prepared to allow people in. So I did warn my neighbor, he may have a roundabout in his front yard, because I don't know how you're going to handle that on Gideon Drive. They're suggesting that it is in keeping with the previous use of the property. It's far more extensive than anything we've ever seen in 38 years on that property. There have been a couple hit and miss things that didn't really affect anybody too greatly, other than there was a traffic accident. But this is something meant for, in keeping with your principles, with your planning principles, which are on your website. It's not meant for this area. It's meant for a settlement area. I think I'm not a public speaker. I think that's most of what I had to say. But anyone, we're not great in number because of the way that our properties are set up. And I don't think you'll find one neighbor in favor of it, and all of us greatly opposed.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? When you're ready to speak, just push the button and it'll turn red. I have to turn mine off first.
Madam Mayor, councillors, my name is Otto Schneider. I submitted actually something in writing as well. Just very short form because I had no time. I only was aware of that since about 3 days and I looked into it. I went through PPS, I went through the official plans, I just read quickly through. I saw lots of things which are very inconsistent. I totally agree with planning, how they argue this thing, because it's really, first of all, the property is in the official plan, agriculture. There was an exemption made, so it was kind of exceptional park and recreation zone. So this opens the door to certain things, obviously, but it was an exemption and it's still an agriculture area. What really concerns me that a project of this nature is not brought to the public ahead of time, because it's obviously an awesome project, don't get me wrong, it's in a total wrong location. It doesn't belong there. It's inconsistent with PPS and it doesn't comply with the official plan as well. There is some things which should be also considered as well, which I wrote here in my letter. The official plan requires that actually the councillor do a master plan for parks and recreation. This master plan is not done. I strongly recommend that you postpone any approval of a zoning bylaw like that before you have a master plan in place for parks and recreation. Also with the goal, again, to be consistent in your planning for the municipality. I'm also questioning, I had time to read quickly the staff report. I didn't see anything concerning neighbors like the London City, which has commercial facilities within 3-4 minute drive away. Medical centers, physio, optometrists, dentistry, retail, restaurants, everything. Then you go to Komoka. They have the same thing as well, 4 minutes away. There is no study done on the demand for that. How we are competing within 3, 4, 5 minutes with other outlets that do the same thing, which is clearly commercial. That's the other thing too. So all what is upgraded in the zoning for that is all commercial. The official plan actually asks for those activities to be in village centers. The official plan itself asks for that. So, I mean, it was brought up here that certain things are going into site plan agreement. I do agree to a certain point, but there is studies to be done before actually a zoning approval should be done. We have wildlife in our area, hundreds of deers, other wildlife which crosses the road. The provincial park is there. There's no study done on the impact of the wildlife in this area as well. So that goes also to traffic. There's no impact study on traffic done either, which affects obviously all the neighbor roads as well, which again, lots of wildlife, road crossing is in place. I just looked at one thing which I write here down from the PPS. Commercial or industrial uses that have a large number of employees or attract a large number of customers may also not be compatible in the prime agriculture area. In addition, some uses may be better suited to settlement areas where municipal services are available. So I agree that obviously there was a study on drinking water. There was no study on wastewater and hydro-G study, which maybe affects the neighborhood drastically. I have no idea how sufficient supply of water is, which the municipality obviously already agreed to supply. Or the City of London has to supply it. I have no idea. That was not stated in the staff report either. So there's a lots of lack of information for the public to actually give an opinion which is maybe more founded. And I really bothers me about that. So again, I say it's actually in the official plan. It is the intention of the municipality to prepare a municipal-wide parks and recreation master plan. Why is this not done? Why is there no priority for this before actually something like this is approved? Does this fit in? You don't know. If you go with exemptions like that, that may backfire on your master plan, because now you have to allow other ones to do the very same thing as well. Now, having said that, 2 years, is there any proof that actually was looked at other locations which would accommodate that, which are in zoning areas, which are actually in compliance with the official plan? That's a question I have. There should be proof of that. That's actually even required in the PPS as well, that there is some proof that this is actually, that other locations were thoroughly looked at. And this is not in the staff report either, neither in the reports by the applicant too. As I say, I'm not prepared. I just speak what goes to my heart. When I moved in this area, it's actually very concerning to me. I know some of you may know that I was involved in the wedding venue at Elwich and Brigham Road. The same thing happened. There was a public meeting. You don't have time to prepare. And it was voted right after. There was no time for consideration by council for what the public said, or actually more time given to the public to actually give more input and be more involved in the process. So this is what bugs me. And I'm actually happy because Frank told me this will be only a public hearing, so there will be not voted on today. So I hope that's really the case, because I have a different experience with Elwich Drive wedding venue. And we're going here the same way as there as well. So I think I close my remarks with that. I don't know how many minutes I used. Probably 5, 6. 2 more. Okay. Well, I hope, I really hope council considers the public and opinions and takes this into consideration and doesn't vote today on it and postpone that. I even go further. I actually hope the councillors are doing first the master plan for parks and recreation and zoning, and then actually go forward. So it's actually create hopefully consistency for planning, considering this zoning. Thank you. Less than 750 meters away is some livestock. Just to let you know.
If there's anyone else who wants to add comments, come on up and push the button. Anything that's been missed or that needs to be added?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Council, for giving me, I don't need 10 minutes. My name is Eric Bosch. I live at 1077 Gideon Drive since 1986. Really enjoyed it and hope to enjoy it many more years. But it seems to me that those plans have been in the making since 2020, 2021, looking at the drawings of the building. They were at that time proposed to, made up by MCI for Dr. Chant. And that is surprising to me because the property wasn't even for sale at that time. So I wonder how that is, or was it maybe a plan for another location and they put it in this year? I am also opposed to the rezoning. I will not go into all the details of the earlier speakers because they presented that very well. I did not have too much time to prepare it because I never saw the sign, what was so big and overgrown by grass, but my wife found it and I stopped when I passed by, and I pass by there every day, never saw it, but that is something for maybe for council to make those signs bigger that the population can see it, or if you don't want us to see it, then make it smaller. The creation of a commercial product, a project like this is totally contrary to the Middlesex Center official plan review of October 2020, the Middlesex County official plan of 2006 to 2026, as well as the provincial policy statement of May 2020. It's very clear in there without going into all the chapters and the item numbers, because I expect you know those official plans by heart, that the land is agricultural zones. I had the pleasure in the last century to be there when the city of London started annexing all the land around them, and the creation of Middlesex Center in 1996, I think it was, that the lands around the city of London would be agricultural zones. It was to us simple citizens promoted as a green zone. I know that very well because the mayor was a personal friend of me, and I had discussions with it, and they said, well, before they start building there, then the villages, urban centers, they will be filled up, and I think they are not filled up yet. So it is totally against all those plans and of your own plans to create commercial pockets in agricultural land and in the rural area. If you do that, I'm not only concerned about myself, I live far enough because I got not a notification, but I'm concerned for all the rural citizens in your township. When you do it with us, you set a precedent, and it is a free world and everybody can do what they want. I had the pleasure in the late 80s to play tennis at our property, and it was very rural. We had the clubhouse in the old barn, and later they put some soccer fields in, what was not successful, and they started the driving race, what was not successful. So I don't see the commercial part of the whole project to make that viable, but that's not my problem. But it is I'm very concerned about it, that you will be, if you approve this, and I get a little bit of feeling talking with my representative in the council, that it is kind of a made up deal already. That's how it came over to me. And but I expect and I hope that the council members are listening to the citizens. They were elected by citizens, and in the last election, everybody promised that the citizens would be heard. And I get a little bit feeling that we were not heard in this. I don't know how far it is. I don't want to go into all the details what the earlier speakers very well pointed out. But this is not a simple minor rezoning from PR zoning to PR zoning number 10, but it is a major rezoning from PR to commercial. Let's call a spade. And I'm very clear that I see that because there's a retail store, there's a restaurant, cafeteria. It would be nice and it would be a good restaurant, and maybe I would have a different idea, but there are offices. Next thing is that there is a little interior changes to more office, because a commercial, it becomes West 6, and Sifton is doing very well with West 5. Everything is there, and 5 minutes over the bridge there is Komoka Center with all the medical clinics. I'm an older man, so I'm very well looked after. It's 5 minutes there or 5 minutes there. I don't need one there, but that's basically what I want to say. I'm strongly opposed against it. And not only for myself, because I don't see it, but for all the citizens of Westminster Centre. Thank you.
What he said.
Is there anyone else?
We're good. Hi, I appreciate everybody listening and maybe getting bored hearing the same stuff over and over again. So my name is Andy Sarkany. I live across the street for 35 or 40 years, and I have no issues whatsoever with progress. Okay, but I'm just hoping that everyone here knows the property, drives by it, is familiar with it. Am I right? So history, Norval Webb and family used to own this place. I'm hoping you know that. And he was kind of an entrepreneur, tried to do things. He had a tennis club, and there was some old asphalt tennis courts there and an old barn where some people would come, sit down, play tennis, but it wasn't big. If Norval would have come to you people and said, I need 518 parking spots, I think you might have had an issue. I think it was kind of zoned the way it was, because it really didn't cause any stress anyway. So Norval had this tennis court, and an old house that he lived in, and a barn. Didn't bother anybody. Tennis court didn't go too well, so Norval says, I'm going to put in a driving range. He didn't come and apply for 500 parking spots. You guys said, sure, put in a driving range. It's zoned. It sort of worked, sort of didn't. So Norval has another idea, and he says, well, I'm going to start cutting the grass in my 20 acres and make it into a soccer field. And he really tried that, and that kind of worked. But traffic was bad, and nobody did any planning. And there was a pretty major accident in front of his house, somebody coming out. And I know with progress, we're going to do plans for Dr. Chant's clinic and alleviate some of that problems. So Norval's soccer club didn't work.
his golf didn't work, and he decided to put in a bicycle track at the back of his property, and that was kind of fun. Okay, he put some music on, which kind of pissed off Rich and Ann, but they come and they ride their bicycles, and that didn't work. Then Norval died. You know, but what I'm telling you, that's the history, and it didn't bother anybody. Didn't bother me, didn't bother any of the neighbors. It was just low-grade stuff. But now we have progress. And I hear through the grapevine, yeah, well, we're going to do this because it's good for the tax base. You need more tax base, just charge the neighbors more. I don't know. So that's the history. It's a sort of a non-issue history of Norval Webb and how it just sort of passed. Property came up for sale. Dr. Chant, I think he saw a good opportunity there and it could work out really well. And I don't want to say anything against the project, just history. And I'm hoping that you guys know where this place is when you do your voting. So anyway, I can never be a politician. Anyway, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Just push the purple button.
I didn't come prepared to speak, but I just wanted to bring up one point earlier when you were looking at granting a concession so somebody's lot could be a little bit larger. I think the deputy mayor brought up the concern about setting a precedent by, you know, pushing the boundaries constantly. So again, this seems to be vastly pushing the boundaries, creating a commercial project in an agricultural area. And you talk about being concerned about conserving and preserving the agricultural area. So I agree with everything that this previous speaker said, but I just wanted to bring up that point as well. I'm shocked actually, because we just got the plans. I had no idea about a rooftop restaurant or anything like that. Initially, we were under the impression it was just going to be a medical center where they would do conditioning for athletes. And I wasn't really that opposed to it, but it just seems to be keeping escalating. And considering the size of the project now, and the concerns with light pollution, impact on traffic, and it just doesn't follow your own plan, as has been mentioned before. Thank you for your time.
Any others? I don't see any hands. So now it is the opportunity of council to ask questions or make comments or. Yes, and you can address the questions to the party to whom you wish to address. So we have the planners and the proponent and staff.
So I'll start. Comments, questions. Marion, as our planner, do you have any comments on some of the comments that were made by the residents here? As to the minimum distance separation, there's people that have a horse farm right behind this. Will it impact them? Can you comment on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Bruce. So MDS would typically apply to sensitive land uses. So residences in particular are the main concern there where people are residing. So a use like this would not necessarily have an impact on MDS or restricting livestock operations for continuing.
Okay, I'm just going to continue and then you can cut me off and go on to whoever wants. So this property is 708 and 714. Is it one piece of property with two addresses? What is it? One piece of property? Okay, so why does it have two addresses, two laneways? 708 and 714. If you can't answer it, I don't think it's that critical to this. on a housekeeping nature, and I've gotten this question, you get notice within 1,000 yards of the property that is applying for a change, correct? Is that correct? Or is it more? Oh, is it the planner, or James, do you talk to that? Well, who would speak to it? Okay. Oh, sorry.
So through the chair, notice is distributed in accordance with the Planning Act provisions. The Planning Act sets out 120 meters for any zoning bylaw amendment, 60 meters for any minor variance or consent to sever application. Thank you.
And when is the sign posted on the property? Same time?
Same time.
Okay.
21 days.
Okay. All right, and I know we follow the Planning Act because people were asking that. So we rely on other people telling other people that if they're beyond this, that something is going on. So the next, and you can cut me off whenever you want, but the one thing that keeps coming up about this is, you know, is there going to be demand for this ice, for what's going on in this facility? You know, I don't personally think we have the right to ask a private entity if they think their business is viable and can they prove it. I don't see that ever done in any other business, but I'm going to direct a question to our Director of Community Services, Scott Mears, who can tell us about, will this damage the wellness center business-wise? Is this ice needed in this area?
Through the mayor. So as I've mentioned to council in the past, our demand for ice is short right now. We are constantly getting comments and emails and questions from our various ice users across all the associations that they themselves are looking for more ice. With us, the municipality only owning 3 ice surfaces and only so many hours throughout the day, and very specifically primetime ice. You know, as you know, the wellness center is fully booked, the Ilderton Arena is fully booked. We're watching this project very closely, as this may have a huge impact on us to the good, in that we, you know, albeit they're a private facility, the associations would have access to ice within the municipality to have access to. So this would not take away by any means from the wellness center. I think it is a private facility. I'm not sure how the rate structure is going to be. It's going to be very different, but we are anxiously, you know, looking at this project and feel that it will have a positive impact if it was to be built on our ice allocation.
Councillor, I just want to ask a question of the director there. What was the year that we did the master rec plan? The trails and the rec plan, 2014, 16?
Through the mayor. So the original Parks and Rec master plan was completed in 2012. The Trails Master Plan was done in 2014. The Indoor Recreation Facility Needs Study was done in 2017. And the most recent Community Services Parks and Rec Master Plan was completed last year.
Go ahead, Councillor.
The other issue that came up, I know this, that I don't believe, and this is directed to Marion, how much proof do we have to provide in this kind of venue that we've searched out other areas that might be suitable for this? You've mentioned it in your 13-page planning document. I know that there is no land available in the settlement area of Kamoka-Kilworth or Ilderton for a facility like this. And then you also mentioned that you looked at lower grade farming operations. Might they be suitable to be taken out to use this? Now, if you can just hold that thought just for the rest of council, this place had playing fields, as the gentleman said, there were soccer fields. If you look at it from the front, there's a house, there were a couple barns playing. There are soccer fields on the left side. There was a driving range they attempted. Yeah, there was a bike path in the back. It used to be the London West Racket Club for playing tennis. And yes, there was a clubhouse. So all that was going on. I think in the last few years, it's just been let go. It's totally overgrown. I was surprised that he was designated as a recreational place within an agricultural zone. So that's the current state of it. Let's see here. So back to Marion then. Proof of other locations, you've said that. So I wasn't aware that we were dealing with the applicant for a couple of years we've obviously expressed interest in something like this, trying to find a location for it. But what proof do we have to provide? People are asking for proof. So you've made your statement. Can you comment on that?
Yes, through Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Burrs. So in terms of proof, we don't expect the applicant to provide an analysis of every single property that they've identified or every single property in the municipality. Through our studies, as you had mentioned, we've looked at Camoka and Kilworth as well as Delaware to see if there are parcels that are suitable in size for this type of development. And the applicant, Dr. Camp, has reached out to me on a number of occasions where we have reviewed a few sites together that were certainly not appropriate. They were typically greenfield agricultural lands or just not suitable in size for this type of development. So we have reviewed some locations in the past. As some of you may be aware, there was a few properties in Camoka that were evaluated and were considered in the past. Unfortunately, those weren't made available for the applicant. So we did review a few places before considering this location.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarification, there was a comment made that I said there was a deal in the works here. No, that's not what I said. There is no deal in the works. I don't influence anybody else on council. There've been comments and I've read all the letters. They're very well written. The comments further extend those letters tonight. And there are some concerns, but people say Gideon can't handle this traffic. Well, that's an opinion. We rely on the county engineer to make the statement that the road is adequate. And I'm presuming what would happen there is there'd be a left-hand turn lane into the facility, a right-hand swing lane into the facility, a right-hand swing lane out of the facility, probably a lane on the other side that allows people to go around the left-hand turn lane. So I'm just making statements as to how I think about stuff. As far as fire suppression, I think there's enough calculation done there where there's no storage tanks needed for some fire suppression. So it will come from our own water system. The big concern is how did we come up with 518 parking spots? Is this based on the number of people that are held in the facility that the facility can hold? Can you comment on that?
Yes, so the parking spaces are calculated based on the square footage of the uses that are proposed. So there are different rates for the recreational space versus restaurant or the clinic spaces. I don't know if Simona can wants to go into deeper detail with regard to that, but that's typically how it is, and it is established within the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so there's 518 parking spots. When I look at our wellness center, two-pad arena, gymnasium, meeting rooms, we never have anywhere near that in that facility. So I'm expecting this is required for planning purposes. I'm hoping it never gets to, I don't see how it can get to 518 cars parked there, but those have to be made available. And I don't have anything more to say on that. Now, with respect to this area, the whole area is agricultural. There's horse farming. There's probably other animals being raised around there, and there's cash crops. And right across the street is the Camoka Provincial Park. Now, what was stated here is we always look to the conservation authorities, and in this case, it's Upper Thames. Is that correct? That oversees that area and would look at this land. This land has nothing in it that the conservation authority has any control over. In other words, they have no statement on the land itself other than the distance from Kamoka Provincial Park, which means a development assessment report from the Conservation Authority is not needed as part of the approval process for this, correct?
Just to clarify, with regard to the development assessment report, it's correct that it would not be needed for any items on the land or any natural features on the land. However, due to the proximity to the provincial park as well as the regulated area, the county would still require a development assessment report for any development that's within proximity to this area. And the applicant would still be required to meet the policies of both the county and Middlesex Centre's official plan. It may not be approved, quote unquote, approved by the UTRCA. However, it will likely be scoped by them, and the municipality would likely have to have a third-party review of that development assessment.
So next issue is, and it was brought up, a lot of stuff is counting on this work being worked out at the site plan level, correct? Like you're talking, what about lighting? Lighting's a big concern. Will this be a beacon in the sky at night in the middle of an agricultural area? Or what, are there any plans on lighting? So I could turn to the planner. It'll come later, but can you provide any clarification? No?
Sorry,
Okay.
yes, through, I know Dan's in the audience as well, but typically items such as lighting, landscaping would be done at site plan stage and would be working with the applicant to ensure that it meets municipal standards and for accessibility requirements as well.
Rob, would you like to jump in and just talk about site plans for a second?
Yes, sure, I'll jump in. Dan may have some to add, but yes, so the site plan process, that's where we're going to get into the more detailed aspects of the site, including lighting design. There'll be a requirement for photometric design, lighting layout, right? And the expectation would be is that the type of lighting on the site would be not necessarily dark sky compliant, but that they would be down lighting right onto the site as opposed to beaming up into the air. That doesn't mean there's not some residual that is reflected upwards. Of course, you still see that.
All right. So the other big concern that has come out is people have wells there and there's no stormwater management pond or storage facility for stormwater management. So what was stated was we'll retain it on the roof of the buildings because the buildings will be designed with a flat roof. So we'll retain rainwater that hit the roof on the roof. There's a lot of parking lot there, a lot of paved surfaces. Is this part of the site plan too? That, you know, like there's concern over the amount of water that's going to come off this piece of parcel, and it's going to go into the, I presume, the drains beside the road, or how is that going to be handled so that we minimize or eliminate any effects it has on the local wells or the water table? Any comment on that at this point?
I see your hand. Do you want to take that again?
Through the chair to members of council. Sorry, Marion, if you don't mind, I'll just jump in for a second. So all really great questions. All questions that get dealt with a detailed design at site plan control. So we do have municipal standards that are in place that require things like access to water, access to stormwater management, and sanitary access. They do have to meet all of our municipal standards, regardless of zoning. If it doesn't meet the municipal standard, it doesn't get built. So in terms of stormwater control, all stormwater has to be maintained on the property, and their engineer would have to satisfy the municipality that they're doing so with their stormwater management. From water, we already know that the well would be insufficient to size this particular property. So the applicant privately is working on figuring out how they're going to deal with their own water supply, whether that be through an extension of an existing water line service, either from the municipality or more likely in this case, discussions is happening with the City of London for an extension of a water line.
Sorry, if I can just add back to the stormwater component. So probably about 75% of that property is assessed into an existing municipal drain. So they don't have physical outlet to it, but they have ability to outlet to that drain as well. It would need a drain extension or a branch, but it could be done.
So we're to vote on this tonight, and so what you're telling me is there are some issues, but we think we can cover this in the site plan control area of it. Is that what you're saying? So we can approve it. It doesn't get built unless all criteria is met. Well, we didn't say that.
Keep going.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Add something to this, Rob, before, were you in the process? You were? Or Dan was? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, sorry again to jump in, Marion, this is your file. But no, what I would say is, so what council is being asked tonight is to review whether or not they believe that the intended use of the property through the zoning bylaw amendment and the proposed official plan amendment is considered appropriate and desirable. The detailed design on the engineering aspect is something that's dealt with through an entirely other process. So what council needs to do is determine whether or not the use as proposed by the applicant is considered appropriate.
Other questions from council? Yes, Councillor Cates, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Just I got scribble notes everywhere here. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their comments. I'm sure we all listened intently and we read your input that was provided, as well as Marion's very detailed report. I feel that, it's my job to rely on the planners and their reports and the professional recommendations. And, as they've said, there's still further steps and drawings and conditions that'll be applied to it all in the site plan and future steps in all of this. As some of you may recall, Dr. Chant, we worked with him about a year ago in Kamoka, and I'm happy to see that he's staying in the community. And, at that time, it didn't work out for where he wanted to be, but we, the residents that spoke and myself, so many people said, we welcome you to pardon me, to stay in our community, just not at that location. So I am happy to see that he is in our community. And I really understood in discussing the concept with Dr. Chant. It's very unique plan that he has and the concept of it. So I understand as he said tonight as well, the restaurant. It's not that he's going to have a 5-star restaurant there. These are more things for the use of the people that come there. More of a concept to be able to have do surgery there and have physio, everything all under one roof. And these are some services to provide to those people. So I do understand that part of it. I also think in one of the reports there was some photos of the site now. And I think that it's good that it'll get revitalized. The pictures show that it's in quite disrepair, in an abandoned and vacant property. It hasn't been farmland forever, as somebody said. It was since 1970 is when the racket club came. So it's just going to be put to similar sort of use. And, you know, some of that is already allowed, but we'll add the medical component to it. I think that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else who wants, go ahead, Councillor Arts, I'll take you next.
Through your Madam Mayor, I debated whether I was going to say it. I'm going to say it. I farm, so agriculture is very important to me. But the only time I have a friend is when they want to use me to stop something else. So I hear your concerns. But like I said, the only time people rely on agriculture is when they want to whatever. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, oh, additional questions? Go ahead.
One final comment, and you know, we've heard from the residents that live around there. Their concerns are legitimate, but I received a lot of calls from people that I knew out of the city of London, from Mount Bridges, Kamoka, Kilworth, even Elderton, that are very supportive of this. In my own ward, people are very supportive of this. So I just thought I'd make that comment.
You've had your opportunity. There's a process. Yeah, this is the input. The questions are here. The decision makers get to clarify. And now, unless there are other questions from council of planners or anyone, which I don't see, I have to ask Marion, is there any concern that you have about the resolution as it was proposed by the planner for the proponent?
Through Madam Mayor to council. So it's still planning's preference to see the buildings oriented and located along the Gideon Drive road frontage. This is something that we would apply consistently to any new development, regardless of the type of use, if it's commercial, residential, or institutional. So that's our only comment on that. I will advise council that the clinic is relatively small compared to the main use. So this isn't a significant departure away. However, we'd still like to see those buildings located towards the Gideon Drive frontage.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, just clarify there's an alternative that had to be considered. So the recommendation before council is that the official plan amendment that is file OPA 8062 as amended, the one that is before you, that was filed by Strick Baldinelli Moniz on behalf of HGLW Inc. for the lands at 708 and 714 Gideon Drive be adopted and forwarded to the County of Middlesex for consideration of approval. And that the zoning bylaw amendment application said BA 07-2023 as amended, filed by Strick Baldinelli Moniz Limited on behalf of HGLW Inc. for lands known as 708 and 704 Gideon be approved. Do I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Yes. Oh, Councillor Burrs and Councillor Cates. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that motion is carried. Okay, we'll have a 2-minute recess. 7, which is another planning application. Can we please take it outside? Thank you. Okay. So this is an application for zoning bylaw amendment, ZBA 05-2023 for Queen Street, filed by Denton's on behalf of Canadian National Railway. And this is Marion's file. If you'd like to present the report, I don't see her here yet. There you are. Go ahead. The floor is yours, Marion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you to council, I'll just quickly share my screen.
Just a second, Marion. Excuse me, could we take the conversations outside, please? Okay, thank you, Marion. I apologize for that.
All right, the municipality received a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands on Queen Street, located on the northeast side of Queen Street between Railway Avenue and Huron Avenue. The subject land abuts the CN Railway corridor and existing residential lands to the south and to the north. The lands are currently vacant and have been deemed surplus as part of the CN Railway corridor in Kamoka. So this application is a result of a condition of consent to rezone the lands. The applicant is requesting to rezone the lands from existing use to new site-specific existing use zone to recognize the minimum frontage of 100 meters and the minimum lot area of 1.4 hectares. As a result of this rezoning application, no new buildings, structures, or uses are proposed as a result of this application, and the lands would still be vacant until such time development proposal comes forward. Notice of this application and notice of the public meeting was circulated to area residents, agencies, as well as staff. At the time of writing this report and leading up to the public meeting, staff did not receive any comments from members of the public or agencies or municipal staff. So staff evaluated the application against all relevant policies of the PPS, the county and local official plans, and generally there is support to retain land for future development in conformity with the official plan designation. In this case would be employment. When a new development proposal is proposed for these lands, a more comprehensive analysis would be undertaken against those relevant policies. Upon my analysis, staff recommend to approve the zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the land to a new site-specific extension 3 zone to recognize the minimum lot area as well as the minimum lot frontage. The recommendation is consistent with the PPS and in conformity with the county and local official plans. And this opinion is provided prior to public meeting, so any new information should be considered by council before making a decision. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to note that Andrea Sinclair is available virtually on behalf of the applicant to comment on the application if we need. And we have Mr. Sass here to comment from the public.
Anyway, I'm not sure what proposal is for this property, but I do have a couple concerns. I heard that it was to be a storage facility, and living at 224 Simcoe Place, our property backs onto Queen Street, just on the north side of the north train overpass there. So multiple times every year, on average, I would say 5 times a year, trucks slam into these bridges on either side, both the north and south bridges. I have a large collection of aluminum debris from these vehicles that I've collected over the years. And I just have some safety concerns as towards this property. If they were to make it a storage facility, that we would have a lot of people renting trucks and whatnot that would be going in and out of this area with these low bridges. And these people, I mean, these are professional truck drivers apparently that are supposed professional truck drivers that are slamming into these bridges. Some of them reported, some unreported, and then my concern is that we're going to have a lot of people renting trucks and whatnot going in and out of this facility, not realizing the height of their vehicles. And it kind of causes a safety concern for us living so close to the tracks that, these overpasses are probably close to 100 years old. And, you know, if we have a hard enough impact, we could have a derailment in that area, and houses are very close to the tracks. So I think it's wise to consider what you allow to happen. That's all I had to say, really. Just a little concern with the safety of people in the area. So,
Thank you. It's very inconvenient, I know. Marion, maybe can you speak to when we're changing from EU to EU3 and what future uses, I mean, what is that? What would need to happen before anything specific was suggested for that? I mean, there's nothing in front of us that's saying it's going to be A, B, or C.
Absolutely. So the existing use zone will essentially permit everything that's currently operating on the land. So if it's vacant, it will remain vacant. At such time in the future, if there is another proposal for development, the applicant would be required to come back to council and rezone the land for the use that they are interested in, whether it's a storage facility or anything else. They would have to come back to council to propose that use and to have the lands rezoned or redesignated and rezoned.
Okay, thank you for your patience as well. Okay. Sorry about that. I apologize. Thank you for your patience. Yeah. Okay, so does council have any questions of the planner or the proponent? Councillor Cates, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to clarify with Marion, it's a little kerfuffled now. So this is one of the things that you had wrote in there, continue to be vacant. It says that on page 2 of your report, and then you've said no new buildings. So this is just a step. That's why it says to be vacant, because we're just changing something now, and then whoever is going to do something will come back to us. And so that's why it said that, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So this rezoning is just to recognize the severance that created a new parcel. So just address the lot frontage and the minimum lot area.
Just before I take your question, Councillors, Ms. Patterson, would you like to jump in and make a comment or clarify anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Yeah, I think the step that maybe hasn't been highlighted enough, perhaps for the resident, and is the fact that this was a consent application to sever lands to create this new lot that was approved last summer, July 20th, 2022. So the zoning amendment is just to recognize the lot that was created and allowed that lot to and allow for the finalization of the consent. So it doesn't put forward any proposed use or development of the lands. It just recognizes the creation of the lot itself, because under that existing use zoning, it only allows the existing use or including lot configuration that was in existence at the date of the passing of the bylaw, as you well know, and I believe that was 2005.
Thank you for that extra clarification. I'll look to Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to Rob, the previous gentleman's questions on trucks hitting that railway crossing. Is there a way we can put, say, note, or obviously people can't read signs or they follow. Is there a way that we could have warnings farther down the street so maybe the light bulb goes on before they get to the tracks?
Yeah, so sorry, pardon, I was outside during the previous comments, but I think I get the context, right? So the concern is hitting that underpass, right? So yeah, that's not the only location that we have problems, and it seems to be no matter what signage you put up, there's some that slip through. So certainly we can look at trying to enhance what's there, but further, yeah, we can certainly look at that. And offhand, I don't know what's there. There'll certainly be signage there right now right at the crossing, but I'm not sure if we have anything in advance.
It's kind of a moot conversation at this point. What we're doing is making sure we're creating a lot here tonight, and whatever anyone decides to do down the road, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, is there anybody? Okay. It's been a long day, hasn't it? Okay. Is there anyone else before I call for? Nobody else. Okay, so there is a motion before us that the zoning bylaw amendment application said BA 05-2023 filed by Denton's Canada LLP on behalf of Canadian National Railway Company to rezone the lands from existing use EU to existing use exception 3, that is EU-3, for the land known legally as concession 2, part lot 6 in the municipality of Middlesex Centre be approved, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration once a deposited reference plan has been provided to the satisfaction of the municipality. Could I have a mover, please? Seconder. Councillor Kings and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I need a motion that public meetings adjourn at 8:50 p.m. and council resumes the regular meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Arts and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. There are no notices of motion. We have a number of correspondence items. Is there anything here that somebody would like to speak to or comment? Yes, go ahead, Councillor King.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure to you or to James. I just wanted to ask the correspondence 12.1 on Bill 5 about a motion. Did we already do that motion last meeting? I remember there was something. Oh, you have it already? Okay, I'll stop. Oh, oh, so you want me to? I'll make a motion. Okay. Well, I will happily give you the motion, but you have to tell me exactly what it has to say, or is it's worded in there? I support this for a motion. Thank you.
And I'll just read that. We'll do this separately, right? Yeah. Yes. So right now we're going to, there's a proposed motion here, wording that satisfies the clerk. That Council of the Corporation of Municipality of Middlesex Centre express its support for Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act, which would require the Code of Conduct for municipal councillors and members of local boards to include a requirement to comply with workplace violence and harassment policies and permit municipalities and local boards to direct the Integrity Commissioner to apply to the court to vacate a member's seat if the Commissioner's inquiry determines that the member has contravened this requirement. And further, that this resolution be circulated to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Stephen Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the Honourable Monty McNaughton, Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. So I have a mover. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Burrs. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. That is carried. And if there's nothing else on the other correspondence items, we have a motion that correspondence items number 12.2 through 12.5 listed on the May 17th, 2023 agenda be received as information. A mover, please, and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Brennan, Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, Deputy Mayor Brennan will have an update from May 9th for us on what happened at County.
A lot of the councilors were in that meeting and were briefed on planning matters and other major services that the county does. So I won't reiterate everything that you guys heard already. The community emergency response volunteers were honored at that meeting. The county connect routes are being changed. Route 1 is going to be go to Lucan, Illerton, Arva to London 2 to 3 times a day. Route 2 will be Woodstock to Dorchester to London. The rates are still at $5, and this will all start May 29th. So there'll be some public transit in the area. North Frontenac Telephone Company is putting some more fiber optics in along county roads, and they were given access to do that. We were introduced to Ross A. Stewart, the new detachment commander for the OPPs. He's talking about coming around and seeing us all eventually when he gets time. The different things that we talked about were presented. Those are the main things. The rest are just paying bills and that sort of thing. So that's the gist of it. Thank you.
Thank you for that update then. Oh, we have a question from Councillor Heffernan. Go ahead.
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, is that being advertised, the change in the county routes? It is, okay.
I believe there will be something coming out through the organization to let people know that it, and some signage probably going to be going up so that people are aware of it and what time the routes will be and you know, what time they get picked up and dropped back off. So that should be coming.
Councillor Burrs.
Prince, if I remember, they're trying for an application that you can download on your phone and see where the bus is. So I think that's what's happening.
I think that'll be, you know, so people can tell when the bus is coming, but I think there'll be a little broader thing to let people know that the service is going to start and about the app and everything else, so people are aware of what's going on.
Oh, sorry. Is there anybody else? No? Okay. In that case, thank you for that update. And we can move to other business. So tonight we have a presentation from Dan, who's going to provide an overview of the county land planning summary that was presented. The floor is yours.
Through the chair to Madam Mayor, members of council. So I don't know how many attended the Middlesex County meeting this past Tuesday, but it is the same presentation. So bear with me. I'll just provide you with more information. So you're up to date and up to speed. So tonight, yeah, we're talking about planning reform, which is Bill 97, as well as a ERO posting for a new provincial planning statement. So the intent of the new planning statement would be to replace the existing provincial policy statement. It also kind of is a conglomeration of two documents, which is the existing growth plan in the Niagara GTA area region and the existing provincial policy statement. So it'll kind of come together, the intent from the province as one document. So on, back previous slide, there we go. On April 6th, the provincial government did release its most recent proposal in support of their housing supply action plan. And that included the Bill 97, which is the Helping Homebuyers Protecting Tenants Act, as well as this new proposed provincial planning statement. Bill 97 proposes amendments to a number of different provincial statutes. Many of the proposed changes relate to increasing protections for tenants as well as prospective homebuyers. And the majority of the proposed changes to the Planning Act would build on clarifying some previous changes that we saw through the implementation of Bill 23 as well as Bill 109. The proposed changes to the Planning Act include postponing the Bill 109 date for planning refunds for applications to July 1st of this year. So any applications that we do have in the existing pipeline, we don't have to worry about refunds until that July 1st application acceptance date. The minister would be given additional authority, including exempting minister's zoning orders from complying with provincial policies, As well, more technical changes to intercontrol bylaws, as well as areas of employment and additional residential unit parking requirements. So the existing provincial policy statement and a place to grow plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Currently, right now, there are two separate documents that provide provincial policy direction on land use planning in Ontario. The province is proposing, again, to combine those two documents together into one province-wide planning statement. Generally speaking, this is a move to a more permissive planning framework, in our opinion. The proposed PPS policies are grouped under 5 general pillars. Oh, sorry, next slide. And they're outlined on the slide. And we'll just kind of make our way through each one of these pillars here. So housing supply, the proposed changes intended to support generating housing supply include requiring municipalities to provide a range and mix of housing options, with the definition of housing options being further expanded to include additional housing types. It also requires municipalities to permit more housing on farms, including residential lot creation in prime ag areas, ARUs, or additional residential units, and housing for farm workers. It's also noted, however, that the definition and references to affordable housing are removed from the proposed document. So next slide, the land available for development. So the proposed changes intended to support making land available for development include requiring municipalities to plan for a minimum 25-year horizon, with no maximum time frame, as opposed to the current 25-year maximum that we have today. So that's pretty significant change for all municipalities across Ontario. There would also be greater flexibility for municipalities and private landowners to apply to expand settlement boundaries without a municipal comprehensive review and without a rigorous amount of criteria for the expansions. So number 3 is infrastructure. These include relaxing servicing hierarchies and providing more permissive language as it does relate to development on private or communal private services. And one change to note under the topic is that the concept of strategic growth areas is proposed to be integrated from a Places to Grow Act. Number 4, so balance housing with resources. These include, or are intended to include balancing housing with resources, which is the introduction of a concept of watershed planning. It's noted that natural heritage policies and related definitions are still being considered by the government at this time, and they're not included within this draft proposal of the provincial planning statement. The province has indicated that once the proposed policies are ready for review and input, they will be uploading them onto the environmental registry. So staff will continue to monitor for those, and we will bring them forward at a future date. So number 5, implementation. So from an implementation perspective, the proposed PPS makes it clear that the policy represents minimum standards. However, there are few areas in the document that prohibit municipalities from implementing policies that would exceed those minimum standards. So the document also clarifies that all council decisions must be consistent with the planning statement once it is forced in effect, regardless of the existing official plan policies that they have in place, and that their official plans have to be updated to be consistent with the provincial planning statement. So that's something that we will have to look at doing once, if and once this becomes forced in effect. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the implications for Middlesex County and how that kind of rolls down to the different municipalities. So in terms of the new PPS, it is a significant change to planning policy across Ontario. The proposed changes are extensive. However, we do note that they would appear to have most potential impact with, or sort of the areas that we would consider as most potential are the additional residential unit policies, as well as lot creation within our prime agricultural areas. The ability to privately expand settlement area boundaries, The county official plan growth responsibility, it's a bit confusing and concerning as to where that lies, as well as potential other considerations that we need to review. So in terms of additional residential units, we know that they're subordinate to the principal dwelling. We can have up to 2 ARUs in the prime agricultural area and would be permitted to provide any ARU within, attached to, or in close proximity to the principal dwelling, which would still be subject to MDS compatibility as well as servicing requirements. So the language is proposed is a bit loose. We're not exactly sure how to interpret that at this point. So we're still kind of waiting for clarification on a few items. It does not impact Bill 23's as of right permissions for ARUs on parcels of urban residential land, which are considered parcels that are on full municipal services. And this represents the 3rd provincial definition of an ARU and would permit up to 3 standalone residential units on a rural parcel. So that's different than what they had introduced previously under Bill 23, which was only 1 standalone ARU. You could have 3 units, but 1 would have to be in the principal dwelling, and then 1 could be in a subordinate dwelling. This is 3 potential dwellings on 1 parcel. Bill 97 would clarify that where a planning approval is required to establish an ARU, council decisions are not appealable by the public. So lot creation, the province under the new proposed PPS has included section 4.3.3.1A, which talks about new residential lot creations from parcels of land that have existed as of January 1st, 2023. And it gives our criteria as to how those lands would qualify for lot creation in agricultural areas. So it does note that the principal use of the land has to be agricultural. The total number of lots created from the parcel cannot exceed 3. And any residential use has to be compatible with and not hinder surrounding agricultural operations. And then it goes on to clarify that new lots are intended to be located out of specialty crop areas. They must comply with MDS. They will be limited in the minimum size needed to accommodate the use, as well as sanitary and water, which is fairly typical of our existing surplus farmhouse dwelling severance direction. And they have to have existing access on a road as well as frontage. And then it also clarifies that it has to be adjacent to an existing non-agricultural land use, which is consistent with primarily lower priority agricultural lands. So in terms of lot creation, the proposed policy does raise several interpretation questions, but would allow for the creation of 3 residential building lots on a farm, subject to the criteria that we just kind of went through. So in addition, the ability to sever a surplus dwelling does remain, and it would be possible to build up to 3 residential units on all such lots. And the PPS also specifies that municipalities may not be more restrictive than the policies, except to address public health and safety. So basically it says we can't add additional policies into our official plans that would be beyond this scope. So it's, you have 3, you can have 3. This proposal represents, a fundamental policy change that we're used to dealing with, especially in our agricultural areas. It scatters residential development within our agricultural areas, and it has been discouraged generally in Ontario for what we would consider the last 50 years. So that's a good question. So the question was, are they 3 units on 1 farm, or are they 3 severed lots, correct? So our interpretation of the policy is, if it's an agricultural parcel of land, you can sever 3 lots off of that agricultural parcel. With the additional residential unit policy, also in the provincial planning statement, you can then place 3 units on each parcel of land, subject to the availability of appropriate safety and hazard concerns. So so this graphic here, before we get into questions, we can get into questions later. But the graphic here kind of shows our typical agricultural lands within Middlesex County. This is representative of a 50-acre parcel and a 100-acre parcel, where you could have a surplus dwelling severed off, kind of shown as the smaller black lot or housing lot on the agricultural parcel, and then the 3 additional units or severed parcels that could occur in each instance. So when you kind of compound that, so if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see what happens when you're in different quarter sections of the municipality, and how impactful it could be in an agricultural area, especially when we're looking at things like livestock operations for agricultural parcels and establishing appropriate MDS setbacks from sensitive land uses. And then if we go to the next slide, this is kind of our broad interpretation of what could happen across Middlesex County in terms of residential severances in agricultural areas. So it's pretty vast. Yeah.
That was 120,000 houses in county, right? 100 total in the end. 20 in the county, not us. Oh, sorry. This was 120,000 acres. I was talking about the county, the map that we see right there. That was what I was trying to clarify, because I was talking to Huron County today and they're over 250,000.
Yeah, great question. So it is coming up on the next slides, but yeah, you're right. So based on our initial preliminary estimates, we would say there's about 7,100 agricultural parcels across Middlesex County. And if you factor in potentially 3 severances on the 7,100 parcels, you get close to 21,000 lots, residential lots in agricultural areas. Yeah, and that would be assuming that every single person does it. So obviously every person will not do it, but that's the potential impact. So further from that, in terms of lot creation further, it does disperse non-farm dwellings and has the potential to impact agricultural, as I noted, livestock farming. Also, we've identified the potential impact to aggregate extraction, negative potential impacts to the environment, as well as provisions of municipal and other services, as well as municipal infrastructure, including our existing transportation network. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at our existing municipal roads, our highways, our county roads, and having additional accesses onto them and potentially bogging them down. So rural growth, again, may occur at the expense of planned urban growth and may lead to an inefficient service provision, as well as underutilized municipal infrastructure within settlement areas. So what we mean by that is, we have our existing settlement areas allocated for growth. We have existing planned infrastructure within them. Wastewater treatment plants, for instance, are built, assuming that we're going to achieve a certain level of population to utilize them, and we forecast their cost based on that. But our concern in this case is if we have that residential growth occurring outside of our settlement areas in the agricultural areas, we don't have that growth pressure within our existing settlement areas to help offset the cost of that infrastructure.
If a developer buys 100 acres of land, say outside Illerton, he can automatically have that put in the urban center and nothing we can do to stop that?
So through the chair to the deputy mayor, yeah, it's a really good question. So based on the proposed provincial planning statement, They've removed our growth planning horizons and our growth planning projections in the way that we typically would do settlement boundary expansions through a comp review. And what it says now is anyone at any point in time could propose to have their lands included within the settlement boundary. And our concern is that they've really kind of relaxed the criteria for inclusion of lands within settlement areas. So it does add that potential conflict. And further from there, and we'll kind of get it. And so this slide talks to that is the boundary adjustments. And it does talk about, right now we have a maximum planning horizon of 25 years, which allows us to efficiently plan where our services and our hierarchy is going to be and our infrastructure, roads, everything. The new provincial planning statement says we have to plan for a minimum horizon of 25 years. So it doesn't ever state that there's a maximum in terms of inclusion of land for development. So at any point in time, someone could potentially propose to include their lands within a municipal settlement area. And it could be difficult from the municipal perspective, from the county perspective, to say, no, this doesn't make sense at this point in time. Generally because they've removed a lot of that criteria that we would evaluate those types of applications against.
I just wanted to build on that a little bit, because basically what we're saying is if you have a hamlet that's growing, like Kamoka was at one point, and you plan for services, but somebody owns, I don't know, 100 acres on top of the hill. Well, I don't own land down there, but I want to build here. That it's arbitrary. They can decide they want, they can just go and say, I want an MZO. It happened, that. Yeah, so your plan to have servicing here doesn't mean that that's going to get developed in any kind of logical order, because the boundaries can be expanded at any time, and it doesn't necessarily, and falls into that extended planning horizon, which doesn't necessarily have any kind of logical servicing plan at any point at that time when that person decides. So I think chaos is probably a good word of explaining how this might go.
Yeah. Yeah, so through the chair, it was a really good question, and it sparked a lot of conversation, right? So, and that's really what this slide talks about, is that case by case basis for reviewing privately initiated land expansions within settlement areas. Keep in mind, we would, from the county's perspective, we're still going to review it from, or we think we're still going to be able to review it from a use and efficiency perspective. And whether or not these developments actually would be able to be built would be contingent off of them being able to achieve appropriate and efficient servicing hierarchies. So, well, we'll wait to see what happens. So in terms of the boundary adjustments, again, it also talks about the removal of the requirement of the municipal comprehensive review, which I touched on. It may encourage land speculation ahead of growth management planning. There could be a potential strain on municipal infrastructure and finances, which we are kind of discussing here. And it also adds complexities in planning for infrastructure and public services, especially in a case of such as schools. It's trying to determine where those proper boundaries are and where the development is going to go. There's additional flexibility for municipalities, could be of assistance, however, but municipalities should be the final determinants of our boundaries, is what our position is. So other considerations, it was expected that this announcement would clarify the role that the municipalities would take concerning natural heritage. However, this basically at this point remains unknown. all we know right now is that that authority has been taken away from the conservation authorities to review. There is a reference to the role of housing service managers, which does require clarification. So in this case, City of London is our housing manager. So the county is working with them as well as the province for clarification on what exactly that means. And there are several areas where the provincial planning statement states that a policy is to be implemented subject to provincial guidance. The timely provision of that guidance would greatly certainly assist municipalities in interpreting as well as implementing the potential changes that we're seeing here. So that's the end of the presentation, but what I would say is the County of Middlesex has submitted a letter on behalf of Warden, on behalf of municipalities, outlining what kind of our not concerns, but potential opportunities that the province may consider through their provincial planning statement moving forward. That has been submitted in advance of the June 6th deadline for submissions. So tonight before you is really just a resolution for a recommendation to accept the information that essentially that you would agree with the position the county has taken. So thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions, but keep in mind, this is all new to all of us, so we're still learning as we go along. I'll try to do my best, and if Marion's still on the line, maybe she has some answers that she could jump into as well, but I can certainly open the floor up to anyone.
Thank you for that quick summary. There is a lot of content there, and it is, parts of it are really hard to tease out and understand what that's going to mean. But does anyone have questions? I'll start with you, Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to Dan. Let's say I got a 100-acre farm. I got a house on it. You're gonna let me do 3 severances. I assume we would make sure they'd have to butt against one another? Or can we at least have that authority to make them together or not? Because we don't make them together. You're telling me each house can have 2 ARUs too? 3. Did I miss that? I thought it said 2 in here.
Yeah, so through the chair, yeah. So just for clarification, the ARU policy is 3 residential units. So you'd have your primary unit and then 2 additional residential units. So it's the entirety of it is 3 units on a lot. But in terms of your question on our interpretation as to where the lots can be located, essentially right now, we initially took the interpretation that it could only be in a case where it's adjacent to a non-agricultural use. So our initial interpretation of that was, well, the only situations where we have non-ag uses on ag parcels are surplus residential properties. They're residential properties in ag areas, or a situation where there's an existing residential property in the ag area. The province has further clarified that's not what they meant. They meant every ag parcel would qualify for a severance, up to 3, but that the severed parcels should be located in close proximity to that non-ag use. So in our interpretation, that means next to, or in close proximity or next to the existing dwelling that's on the lands, or lower priority agricultural lands on the parcel. So that's kind of what is included in their criteria that they have for the lot creation.
I got one more and then I'm done. This Middlesex County with all these little red specks on it. You're saying there's, in the whole county, there's 7,100 parcels that are available for severances. Okay.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So we've done a preliminary GIS mapping exercise, and based on our interpretation of the data, we have set close to, give or take, 7,100 ag parcels or farm parcels that could potentially qualify for a severance based on the planning statement policies that have been presented, which effectively means times it by 3. And that's where we kind of get to the 21,000 potential residential lots in ag areas. But our point in that, in this kind of outlined in the warden's letter, is you could take that amount of land and build substantially more urban dwelling units on it than you would get in the agricultural areas. So why not include that instead of in the ag areas to our settlement areas and triple, quadruple the amount of homes that can be built? So
Councillor Cates. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan, I just want to clarify. I thought, but I don't see it where I read it. I thought that I saw that in a urban, you could have 2 additional ARUs. And in agriculture, you could have 3.
So through the chair, I'd have to go back and confirm that, but I believe in all intents, it's 3 units on a parcel. So similarly with the urban tracts of land, you can have your principal dwelling and 2 subsidiary units. In the urban context, the units either have to all be located in the principal dwelling or 2 units in the principal dwelling and 1 in an associated accessory building. The difference in the agricultural areas is that the 3 units can all be located in their own separate buildings. So there's no requirement for 2 units or 3 units in one structure. They can be spread out between 3 separate structures.
So then, because when I was calculating this, I had it as 2 additional, and then I thought you said it was 3. So basically, how I'm thinking about this is you've got your 1 unit already, and then you're gonna sever off 3 lots for 4, but each one of those can have 2 more on it. So now you've got a whole bunch of people all living in I thought it was 16 at 3, but I guess it's probably 13. 13 families are suddenly living where there was 1 family. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and through the chair, and we're not exactly sure that's what they're intending by the policy, but certainly that could be interpreted to apply that way. So we've made that point clarification to them, and we're hoping that they're going to clarify based on whatever finalized document comes, how many units get allocated between the parcels and whether or not additional units can be placed on those severed parcels. And similarly, could those be severed off as surplus dwellings at some point in time in the future? So there's still a lot of things that we've asked questions on that we're seeking additional information for.
We are 3 minutes away from being offside from our bylaws. So we need a motion to continue the meeting. We have set time?
No, just a motion.
Just a motion. Yeah, so we need a motion to continue the meeting. It's 3.5 hours are up. So I have Councillor Cates moving, and Councillor Arts seconding. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that carries. Yeah, we haven't hit it before. Okay, are there other questions on this presentation? Yes, Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor to Dan, if this goes through, can we at least control the bloody size of the lot, make it small enough so they can't get anything else on it?
Yeah, so through the chair to Council Arts, you're 100% correct. So we, at the county, the planners, we've sat down, we've discussed what the implications are of this. If this does go through, and what our potential thought and mind frame is, effectively is limiting those severances based on the policy, which says lots shall be limited in size to accommodate the residential use and the associated services. So looking at those scenarios, what is the minimum size of lot we need to support a residential property with the associated services for that property? And then from there, back it up and limit any potential severance to that size. So that's still something that's ongoing that we're having discussions on in the county. And that's something certainly that we'll bring forward to all the local municipalities as to how they want to interpret it. But keep in mind, if we're going to experience a significant volume, we're likely going to be in a situation where we're going to have to establish some sort of delegated authority to approve. Because I'm pretty sure council is not going to want to see 200 applications at every council meeting.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Happen.
Through the mayor to Dan. So when the county made their calculation, were they basing it on 50 and 100 acre parcels?
So through the chair, so the calculation that was run was based on the existing agricultural farm fabric that we have across the county. So that would include both 50 and 100 acre parcels, or 25, or whatever they are.
Okay, that's what I was concerned with, because we do have over time, various parcels have been severed. Some may be 10 acres, 25, whatever. So each of those, which are still considered, it's still zoned agriculture. Potentially they could have another 3 or 6 or whatever. I just have to comment that when I read this, my first thought was it's like a free for all, like just do whatever you want. And I'm
Oh, go ahead. You've got one more question? Go for it.
Through Madam Mayor to Rob. You know, if we do a justification study, we got to hire this consultant, that consultant, do this, do that, and there's a report with their name on it. Who wrote this? Like, there's no name on it. It says Ontario government, but don't we have the right to know which department or who the? That's it. That's not.
Yeah, so the so just to respond to that, so the provincial ministry in charge of the provincial planning would be the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So Minister Stephen Clark.
If there are no other questions, then we have a choice of oh, one more question. Sorry, I cut her off.
sorry, I just have one comment too, is we do have some parcels of land that have already been purchased by various investors with their intent already. We've heard rumors that they want to, sever off a few houses. But I also heard from, which makes sense, from a neighbor of one of these parcels that, this makes it too expensive for the young farmers or a real farmer that wants to expand their operation. And with this type of thing, like we've mentioned, potentially the price of farmland is going to be unattainable for farmers. And so that's a corollary of that this statement didn't consider, but it's certainly something that I'm pretty sure the agricultural community is going to be really concerned.
It depends if you're running a business or if you want to develop. So. Okay, we're going to make a motion here. We have a choice. We can just two choices. We can receive for information, or we can make a motion to send to the province that highlights some of our concerns about what it is. Just read the whole thing. I don't, okay. Oh, did you have, what do you want to make a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we take your option 2 and send it on and support the warden's letter. And
A seconder, please. Councillor Shipley, all in favor? Okay, so the motion that's before us at this point is that, let me see here. Whereas the goal of increasing housing supply and reducing barriers in planning processes as set out in the recent legislative, regulatory and policy changes, including new provisions from Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act 2022 is commendable. And whereas the provincial policy statement acknowledges the need for growth and development beyond major urban centers, it is also essential to ensure that these changes do not compromise the quality and sustainability of rural and small urban areas. And whereas agriculture is a predominant land use within Middlesex Centre and an important component of the economy and culture, and whereas the proposed policy would allow the creation of up to 3 new residential lots or a parcel of land that existed on January 1, 2023, subject to the criteria. And whereas the creation of residential lots across the countryside will have significant impacts on other provincial and local interests, including agriculture, especially livestock farming, the availability of mineral aggregate resources close to markets, provision of municipal services on the provincial, county, and municipal road networks, and that the resultant scattered residential development could occur at the expense of this growth occurring in our small urban communities. And whereas cumulatively, these proposals have the potential to have detrimental impacts on municipal infrastructure, including roads, bridges, water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Middlesex Centre, 1, pause proposed changes to the PPS, particularly regarding agricultural lands, that is sections 2.6 and 4.3. And second, ensure that municipalities have access to sufficient funding and support the province can facilitate sustainable development and help create complete communities that efficiently utilize land, infrastructure, and public services. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, the Honourable David Piccini, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, Lambton Kent Middlesex, MPP Monty McNaughton, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. A mover, please. Oh, we have it? Yep. Let's vote on that one then. All in favor? And no one is opposed. That carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Well done. And now we have bylaws. We have bylaws 2023-051 through 2023-62 listed on the May 17th, 2023 agenda. A mover that they be approved, please. Councillor Cates is seconded by Councillor Burrs. All in favor? And that is carried. And now a motion that the Council for Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns the May 17th, 2023 Council meeting at 9:37 p.m. Mover, please. Councillor Shipley, Councillor Arts, thank you kindly. All in favor? And that is carried.